Durham region right here on Rogers TV. My co-hosts today are someone that you'll recognize because she has her own show called Modern Business. Please welcome Taylor Bursey.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Taylor. It's nice to see you again. And someone else who is not new to politics at all. She has done 3 terms as councillor in Oshawa. Please welcome Louise Parks.
Thank you. Thank you for including me tonight.
I'm glad you're here. It's going to be an interesting evening. There's going to be a lot of information going on. I did want to mention that many of the municipalities have decided to hold their ballots publication until they got it all together. So if you see zeros beside names, it simply means that we don't have those numbers yet. But please be assured that the minute we get them, we will have them as well. We have a breaking news, an issue in Scugog, which has just come up. And we've got the clerk for Scugog Township, Becky Jameson, on the line. And to clear this up, Becky, are you there?
Hi, Doug.
Hi, how are you?
How are you? I'm good, thanks. How are you?
We're good. So I understand there's a bit of an issue in Scugog.
Yeah, so we did have a slight little bit of an issue here where we did have some technical difficulties with our internet voting, which was impacting some electors' abilities to cast their ballots. And this occurred between the hours of 5:30 p.m. and 6:45 p.m. Voters who experienced difficulties were told that their ballot was not cast and were made aware by the system that they had not voted. As a result of this, I did make the decision as the clerk to extend the voting period until 9:30 p.m. To ensure that those electors who did experience difficulty have an opportunity to cast their vote.
Okay. What exactly was the difficulty? What did they experience or not experience? They voted and it didn't work?
Yeah, so we did have, we have contracted services that are used for our internet voting. And there was some technical difficulties that were experienced, and when electors were going on to use the system, some were not able to even get on, and others were going through the process, and then it was saying that their ballot was not casted. And this was brought to my attention, and we immediately started to work with our contracted service providers to address the issue as quickly as possible.
Right. So is it fixed now and you're just going to extend it because the people who didn't have an opportunity to vote will have an opportunity? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, that's correct. So the issue has been resolved now for just over an hour now, and votes are casting successfully. And due to the fact that the issue took place from 5:30 p.m. until approximately 6:45 p.m., we made the decision that it would be appropriate to extend the voting period for 90 minutes.
Absolutely. Excellent. Well, we're glad that it's all working again, that it's fixed. And while you're on the phone, Becky, let me just ask you, so how has it been running up to this election? Because with the internet voting and that, which is kind of new, I know I'm catching you off guard here, but is it something that has been a challenge for you, or has it been very easy?
We've been receiving good feedback to date with respect to internet voting, but as I'm sure you can appreciate, every time something new comes out, there are challenges.
Right.
We've had some issues with respect to electors' difficulty accessing the system, so entering it into the search engine as opposed to the actual URL, things like that have created some challenges. However, we've been working very closely with all electors within the township to ensure that residents have been able to cast their vote efficiently and effectively.
Okay. Well, I must tell you, I actually voted online. I found it to be extremely easy, very, very fast, very efficient. So whatever you're doing, you're doing it very well. So congratulations on fixing the glitch, and we'll look forward to getting the results as soon as possible. Thank you very much for being part of the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you. All right. Well, there's a glitch. I understand also there's some other issues with websites in Pickering, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And I guess when you use technology to do something, it's never 100% guaranteed, right?
It's not, but when it works, it's extremely convenient.
True.
Both of us did the online voting this year, and I could tell you that it was smooth and painless for me, and quite frankly, I prefer it.
Right. Oh, so. Absolutely. Yeah, it's everything online is great. Louise, I bet it's changed a bit from when you ran the first time around, right?
Oh, 100%. You
Yeah.
know, you would, it was so different because it was paper ballots. And then the city of Oshawa started getting the machines,
Right.
which were very efficient. And the system that council initially approved, and I assume it's the same today, was that it would be fed in. The clerk watching it would see that the ballot was accepted, so there was an opportunity to correct it if it hadn't been filled out correctly, maybe an X instead of a circle, that
Right.
kind of thing. But also, there was a paper trail. So
Okay.
if there was a glitch in the machine, you could still count the paper ballots.
Right. That it's amazing how technology has changed, and I guess the internet is the way we're going forward for everything, for anything to do with elections and so forth. So let's talk a little bit about this election, this campaign. There are a lot of people that claim, we'll talk about that later, but the actual election itself, do you think it has run differently than it did, say, 10 years ago or even in 2018?
No, I think the fundamentals are the same as always, from a candidate point of view as well as from the city's point of view. And really, like, that was a very responsible decision that was made
Right.
in Scugog by the clerk. Our clerks across the region are top-notch professionals. They belong to an association, so they're constantly following best practices and learning
Right.
from each other experiences. So I think that's great. Really, the rudiments of an election for a candidate is you knock on doors, you phone, you meet people, you mark their name down, get their phone number, and you call them to get out to vote. And that's about as sophisticated as it is. So
Right. Yeah.
that's a trick. And you send scrutineers in to count the vote if you have the volunteers.
Right. Right.
I'm wondering though, is that landscape changing, especially with the whole digital world changing? It's not just door knocking anymore, it's also outreach online as well
Right.
as some other avenues. So how do you think candidates can separate themselves now?
Well, that's a very interesting point because I think we experienced that this election. I had one door knocker that
Wow.
I missed.
Really?
Okay. I used to be inundated by candidates, and I remember the first time that I remember John Gray was running for the first time council, and he knocked on my door 3 times until I said, yes, I'll vote for you. So that was the old days, right, where you mark that ballot, and I would have my folks, I would try to get, because I had 2 wards, I would try to get about 7,000 declared electors, and I'd call those the day before as well as the day of the election,
Right.
and keep calling until they went out to vote.
Right.
And that's how you win.
Do you get a list of who votes? How do you know?
Well, because you've knocked on doors and you've made a phone call and you've asked for their support and they've promised their support. So the trick is to get them out on election day. And you see, that's the danger, because if you don't mark your vote, you don't know where you are. So if it's a lower voter turnout, incumbents are at risk in
Right.
lower voter turnout sometimes not. It depends how sophisticated the competition's campaign is.
Right. Also, I think there are a lot more people now.
There are a lot
So
more people.
It's a lot tougher to walk the streets.
Yeah.
It's a lot
Yeah.
more work. I get that,
Yeah.
and that's why I guess technology will take over a big part of that. So, I guess to both of you, what do you feel are some of the challenges that people are facing in this day and age that would be of concern to people running in an election or people voting in our region, of course?
I would say affordability is the
Yes.
number one issue, and we have a lot of folks migrating from Toronto and west of Toronto to Oshawa and Durham region, because it's still very affordable in comparison to other communities. And speaking for Oshawa, but certainly Whitby too, but we have just absolutely incredible facilities, both recreational facility, our library system, fire services, our seniors program, I think, is second to none, really. And really, that's what distinguishes Durham region, is that. And I think people are moving here and finding that schools are good, and it's just a great community to raise your family in. And but affordability is going to be is the key, keeping it affordable.
Okay, interesting. What we're going to do now is we did hear from Becky Jamieson, the clerk in Scugog, and we have actually an interview which Taylor, you recorded earlier today, right?
I did.
With the current mayor of Scugog, Bobby Drew, and the soon-to-be mayor, Wilma Watton. So why don't we take a look at that interview?
I can say is, wow, I am sitting here with 43 years of combined experience in public service. I am joined by Mayor Bobby Drew, 31 years, and Wilma Watton with 12 years. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Exciting, emotional day for you both?
Yes. Yeah, I kind of feel out of the loop a little bit because I'm not running, so
Right.
I don't have that feeling of terror and uncertainty in my stomach, and I'm sure Wilma is the same, having been acclaimed.
Well, I still have a wee bit of terror considering the role I'm going to take.
Absolutely.
It's been a little bit anticlimactic, having been acclaimed.
I was going to say, what has that experience been like for you?
Well, a bit, as I said, anticlimactic. In one sense, a relief. I was quite thankful on the 19th of August that I didn't have to go and talk to 20,000 people in the next 2 months. But other than that, it's a bit surreal. It's hard to believe that I was acclaimed.
I could only imagine. Did you feel a sense of pressure to go out and speak to everyone to let them know what you are going to do now that you didn't have to do all that door knocking, or how have you handled the communication piece?
Well, I did feel a sense of obligation. So to try and address that, I held 7 community chats in the different wards.
Okay.
And invited people to come to them and tell us their concerns, their ideas, where they saw us moving in the next 4 years. They were quite well received. Most people were thrilled that we thought about even doing that. I invited all of the acclaimed councillors as well as the Ward 5 councillors. And for the most part, they attended every session, which, speaks very highly of all of them, that they saw that Scugog was bigger than just their ward, and they knew that we would be making decisions that affected all of Scugog. So I was very proud of everybody.
As you should be. And we have somebody with us who's made a significant amount of decisions for Scugog. Bobby, how do you feel transitioning out of your role?
It's mixed emotions. I look forward to retirement and seeing what life is like beyond politics. It's been a big part of my life for a long time. And I will miss the people for sure. I've been extremely busy for 31 years, and so I'm a little apprehensive of having that kind of time on my hands again. But I have some plans, some projects, and I want to travel. And
Right. Do you have a favorite memory from your time as mayor of Scugog?
As mayor, I've got, there's a lot. Of course, the pandemic got in the way of a lot of the fun things and the celebrations and all of that. But, I'm very proud of the fact that our council came to an agreement with the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation to provide road maintenance and fire and emergency services for their community. And I'm very proud about that. That was a long time coming. So I'm very proud about that, and the movements that we've made in, for instance, parks, park equipment, a new one every year, and plus if there's new subdivisions, that's an extra one. So I think we're 3 this year, Wilma?
I think so.
3 parks, and I think the whole pandemic has brought a sense of family back, and how important that is. And going to the park and playing on the playground equipment is a big part of family life, and fortunately we've been able to accommodate that with great equipment. So yeah, there's a lot of things that we're really proud of.
That is excellent. Now, I know you two ladies have a wonderful relationship, and Wilma, off air, you referred to Bobby as your mentor. Now, Bobby, do you have a piece of advice you want to pass on to Wilma on air for all of us to hear?
Oh, wow. We've actually met a couple of times and talked about things that to watch out for and be aware of. Wilma will do a great job. She's been a great deputy mayor and a great regional councillor and a great ward councillor, and she will be just fine.
Okay. And
Thank you.
makes you feel good, right?
It sure does.
So let's talk about your plans as the mayor of Port Perry and Scugog. Do you have anything on your docket? Anything that you're looking to tackle right away?
Not right away. Respecting that, we have a new council. Some of them are experienced, some of them will be new, and they all have to learn the ropes as well. I do, one of my goals will be to review the strategic plan. Not to change it, but just to see if there are things that need tweaking and so on and so forth, because I think it's an excellent plan. I'm very proud, even though Bobby didn't say it, she's very proud also of the Lake Scugog Enhancement Project.
Yeah.
And she has worked very, very hard on it. So I hope that we'll be able to see it to completion. And along with that, continue to work on our waterfront action plan and tie it all together. So that would be a goal of mine in the next 4 years.
Lots to look forward to.
Yeah.
Now, in the last 2 years, we've seen a lot of new communities and new families move to the area. How are you planning on reaching those families to showcase how involved our council is within our communities?
Well, I have already mentioned at our community chats that we will, they can expect that I will continue them, perhaps not in 2 months in a span, but like over the course of the time that I am mayor in the next 4 years, to visit their communities and again invite people. They were very receptive to that, and they offered a lot of great ideas and insight of things that we maybe didn't think about. I mean, when we sit behind our desks and look at our strategic plan, and if things go smoothly, lots of people don't have much to say, right? But
Right.
when you ask them outright, what do you see could be done differently? It was enlightening with some of those things. So that's what I'm hoping to continue, to reach out to those communities. And I'm sure if things aren't going smoothly, they'll reach out to us.
I would assume so, but from my limited experience with council and just learning the landscape of local politics, a lot of our community likes to come forward and speak about the positives as well, like the enhancements you're talking about and how the road work impacts them. So do you feel that love from the community? Do you hear the community reaching out to you to express their gratitude for that kind of stuff?
Sometimes. I wouldn't say a lot. We're truly, I think we're more apt to hear of the things we're not doing well. But we do, people aren't shy if they're particularly pleased with something to come forward and say, oh, that was great. We really are enjoying it. But not as much as I think would be good for our council and our self-esteem, put it that way.
Every time we do get somebody saying, hey, you're doing a great job, it just gives you motivation and energy to continue. Sometimes when we hear the negatives, it's because of misinformation.
Right.
Most of the time it is because of misinformation. So, and that's unfortunate because people get riled up because of misinformation, and you take a lot of time to say, well, no, that's not quite so, and then they're fine usually, right? Yeah.
Okay. I understand. And in the new world of social media and being able to get onto your phone and voice your concerns and your distress, I feel that in turn, perhaps that's something you as mayor could do, is get on social media and, I guess, tackle some of the misinformation? Or is that something that's typically frowned upon in local government?
No, you can certainly, many politicians use social media as a means to put their message out. I hesitate to do it a lot. I mean, I have used it, but I do find that it can also create a lot of negativity. And it's hard. You try to justify what you've just said, and it's very difficult, to get the conversation to end. So you have to disengage, and then it's like, oh, well, she never answered me, so on. So I'm hoping to do it, but I've been advised by a couple of people that do a lot of social media is to be careful not to go down the rabbit hole when
right.
you do.
Yeah, you don't want to get into a debate. And I think our communications department is doing a great job of getting accurate information out there. And I urge people really to check that out and get the correct information before they engage in debate on social media.
Absolutely.
Because then it becomes, so once you've seen something in print, then it's so, and it's really good if people actually check out when they hear a rumor, just check it out.
I couldn't agree more. And on that note, Bobby, congratulations on a wonderful 31 years in public service.
Thank you.
You will be missed, but you're leaving your position in great hands. Wilma, we're excited to see what you do with this next chapter.
I'm excited to be moving forward, truly, and I have to say thank you to Bobby as well.
Well, it's been a very rewarding career, and I'm very grateful that I've been part of this for 31 years now.
Absolutely. That's wonderful.
I wish Wilma all the best and the new council.
Thank you for joining me today.
Our pleasure.
Wow, that was a great interview. Very, very well done, Taylor. I did like the part where you suggested there was over 40 years combined. The look on their faces was priceless. It really, really was. I see we do have some numbers that have come in.
We do. We are very excited to share with you guys that Adrian Foster has been confirmed as the mayor of Clarington.
For those of you watching, on the side of your screen are the councillors. Along the bottom of the screen are the mayors. And speaking of mayors, we have another video clip that was filmed earlier today with Taylor.
But before we go into that, I believe we are going to have a chat in studio with someone.
That would be wonderful. From Clarington, who is acclaimed, who has come back from retirement, please welcome Mr. Willie Wu. Mr. Wu, welcome.
Well, thank you very much, John. And I am so pleased to be here with you and looking at the numbers that are coming in for Clarington with the online voting and phone voting.
Right.
Obviously, the results have been tabulated very quickly and we were able to see the results.
Right.
And the results I see are the voice of the people. They made their decision, and that is the council that I'm looking forward to working with.
I wanted to ask you, you first did this in 2006, right? When you first ran, you have been at it for 12 years and then you retired, and suddenly you're back.
That's correct.
So, what was your what prompted your decision to return?
Well, like any engaged resident and taxpayer, I've been listening to the council meetings. Because of the pandemic, they had been web streamed, and I had the opportunity to listen in. And I guess it's one of those, once a politician, always a politician. And there was some of the issues that I thought that we had a good trajectory on when I left, and certainly it had gone askew. And rather than sit back and criticize or moan and bemoan, and it was a long process. It's not something that was snapped. Following it along, and I felt that if there was going to be a voice for the people, especially in wards 3 and 4,
Right.
that I'd better put my name back in.
Right. And you're acclaimed.
Yes, I was. It was not expected. You never expect
course not.
anything along that lines. We were prepared
Right.
to mount it. Well, we had a campaign mounted.
Right.
And when August 19th rolled around and I was acclaimed, there is a slight sigh of relief.
Right.
But then again, I have been out there. Most people have seen my signs.
Right.
Limited door knocking because I don't have a campaign team. But I feel it's still important to get out there and engage the residents and be seen.
Right.
And listen.
It's very important. The listening part especially is when you're acclaimed, you have the opportunity to do that. Sometimes I guess you want to just sort of sit back and just take it easy, but it really hurts the residents because they don't really know what it is that you're standing for, correct?
That's correct.
So by going out and continuing to do that, I'm looking at a quote here from Mayor Foster on your retirement, which says you've been an amazing councillor, you've been an amazing advocate for our residents, for the municipality, and you've been a very, very good friend. Those are accolades that you just cannot compare. So congratulations on that. You also had 70% of the vote last time around prior to this election, didn't you?
Yes, that's correct.
Wow. So let's talk about Clarington a little bit.
Yes.
What's going on there? What are the big issues in Clarington?
Well, I think obviously, and I think Louise was speaking about affordability. I think people are starting to discover Durham region, and they're starting to discover what Clarington has to offer. And we have a beautiful mix of rural and urban.
Right.
And the affordability, that probably is the main thing that we have to look at. When I say affordability, too, is supportive housing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very important. That's what I'm hearing out there.
And when you say supportive, what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, I think for those that are within our community, and I've spoken to some of the older people that wish to stay within the community,
Right.
but there are no rental accommodations available. Certainly that falls within their price range, what they can afford, and they feel like they're being pushed out of their community.
Right.
And when you've lived in the community as long as I have, and Taylor wasn't even thought of at that time.
Neither was I.
Yeah, you're correct. You're correct. No, but I do say that you hate to see people have to move out of the community
Right.
because it just has gone way beyond their price range. So I look at that supportive housing, just to find housing within, and getting away, if you want to say, maybe even subsidized housing, rent geared to income, but the affordability for our young people to break into the housing market.
Right.
How far do you go?
That's
One
tough.
time, we used to say we could sell in Newcastle, Beauville, move to Port Hope and Coburg.
Yeah.
We can't even do that anymore.
Do you see that happening with retirement homes as well? Because the prices of retirement homes are escalating quite a lot, where people have their retirement savings as their house, and they go to sell it at a certain age with the intent of moving into a retirement home. But if because people are living longer, 8, 9, 10 years later, they run out of money because the cost of those things. Is that something that you would be addressing as well?
Well, the retirement home, and I mean, if you look at that particular segment, I mean, the private industry is getting into it because I think it is recognized that that is a segment where we are living longer. We have those assets from our home that we can put into a retirement home, but like you said,
Right.
it only could last so long. There's the other one that we do have is we do have one place in Parkview that just added on another 37 units.
Okay.
So you have rent geared to income, you have subsidized, but you have market rent. But there's only so many of them.
Right.
And now that's a partnership that we have to look towards with the federal government, provincial government, and municipal
course.
governments,
So
especially the two levels with regional government.
So with you coming back from retirement, Louise, is this something you're thinking about too, perhaps?
Well, I'd have to discuss that with Daryl. But I'm really glad Willie decided to return, because I think he's needed, and I think it's shaping up to be an excellent council.
Well, I do have a question.
Yes.
Willie, oftentimes when you make the decision to come out of retirement or to move to your next big project, if you will, there's a light bulb moment. And earlier you talked about how you're watching the web streams of the council meetings and you were feeling like, you weren't on the path that you left it. Did you have that light bulb moment that pushed you to come back?
Oh, well, I could probably say one that I was looking forward to, and when I was on council, I mean, I'm just looking at capital projects, and obviously recreational, like arenas and that, and we had a project that was scheduled on our facility study that we'd finish off the indoor soccer area with a double pad arena, and then we'd move on to Curtis and finish off the two that are already plumbed there, which would make it a quad to move to Newcastle in 2030. Obviously, I'm a little partial to Newcastle, but my estimate would have been that the shovel would have been would have been in the ground in 2019. Cost would have been a sticker price of about $40 million and change. That had been talked about, bandied about on council. Now they're going to move ahead with that project, but we're looking at a sticker price of over $60 million.
Wow.
But you know, that is a lot of it to do with the times that we're in with COVID and the escalating costs. I think any of your viewers that have went out and bought a 2x4 that used to buy for $3 now cost about $12, and that's just a sign of the times. So, but you know, I would say that light bulb moment probably was there, and I said, you know, I've got to get back in there and do more advocating and speaking up for our residents. And again, like I say, I've lived in Newcastle for all my life, and for the viewers, that's 68 years.
Wow, that's amazing, and we're very, very grateful for what you do and for stepping up to the plate again. And thank you very, very much for being here today and sharing some of your insights. Look forward to following you over the next 4 years, perhaps 8 years. Who knows?
Wow, you don't know. I will say to John, being acclaimed, not once but twice,
right?
That is quite a bar that's set. Certainly for myself, to meet the expectations of those that have the confidence in myself, and I thank all of those residents within Clarington that have that support, and I hope I can live up to that high standard.
I see a check mark beside Mr. Anderson, Granville Anderson's name. So Clarington is moving fast. Thank you so much for being here today. Very much appreciate it.
And if I can say one thing?
Of course, absolutely.
I want to say congratulations to my partner. In 2006, I came in with Councillor Ron Hooper. Mm-hmm. And if I can say anything to the candidates that are successful or maybe not successful, but use Ron as somebody to look up to, follow his lead, because there's no better community person to follow and take the lead of.
That's nice. Thank you very much for that. Thank you. I commend anybody and everybody who steps up to the plate to run in an election. It's a very, very selfless act. Whether you win or not, it doesn't really matter. The fact that you're doing it, it shows a great initiative. Speaking of that, we are going to look at an interview that you did, Taylor, earlier with the mayor of Uxbridge, Dave Barton, who was the mayor and will be again. He has been acclaimed. So why don't we look at that interview and maybe afterwards chat a little bit about how that went.
Absolutely.
All right, Dave Barton from Uxbridge.
I am joined by Mayor Dave Barton. Dave, how are you today?
Oh, having a great day. It's election day, so it's always exciting. But great to see you again. We haven't seen each other since we interviewed in Uxbridge.
I know, it's been a long time, so you've got lots to catch me up on. But first, I need to know what your thoughts are on all these acclamations happening in Durham region.
So, and you know what, it's across Ontario and probably around the country as well. There's been more mayors and councillors acclaimed than ever before. And I don't know if it's the pandemic or social media or what it is, but there's a lot of people stepping out of the business. There's less people that are wanting these types of jobs. And one of our goals over the next 4 years is going to be to try and motivate new people to get involved. And
how are you going to do that?
So I think it's getting the younger generation talking about local politics. We are the government that has the biggest impact on local residents' lives. You know, we're closest to home. And we had 2 or 3 school groups in last week. You know, had a bunch of kids on one of our snowplows. So it's sort of getting people involved in local government, and I'm really proud of what we've done in Uxbridge. So Scugog had only 1 election this year,
right?
And we only have 2 of us acclaimed. So it's again, I feel pretty good about this next council. It could be the best yet.
Well, that is great to hear. And I know that you're very involved in the local community. What sort of tactics are you using to reach out to those new families and those new community members to get them involved in what you guys have going on?
So we're trying every possible approach. So we're on our local radio station, 105.5, Tuesday mornings. Most of council are on social media, so we're very active on socials. And then you see us in the community everywhere you go. If you go to an event, you're going to run into either myself or one of our councillors.
I can personally attest to that. You guys are everywhere, and it is fantastic. So it's pretty safe to say that over the last 4 years, you've tackled pretty significant events in Uxbridge. How are you feeling? Are you feeling energized and excited for these next couple of years, or are you feeling like you're still running a marathon?
So luckily with the acclimation, it gave us some time to just keep doing the job. Willie and I actually met today and allowed Willie Pop and I to just keep on doing the job. And it gave us a bit of a breath. We didn't have to campaign, which means we are ready to go for this next term. We're ready to get our council working together so we can carry on. And we're really prepared for anything. You think of all the different issues that have come up. We had the largest construction project in Uxbridge's history that we dealt with on day one. Then we had the global pandemic. Then we had a tornado, and so certainly we've had lots of practice dealing with pretty major events.
Definitely, and you've had a lot of recognition. The Township of Uxbridge and the community that you are a part of and that you lead has been almost globally recognized for coming together and showing signs of strength during those trying times. So moving forward with your term, what are you looking to do? Do you have any major projects that are going to help get people excited about being in the community and being involved?
So a great question. We've been working really hard on a hospital. So when we've had multiple provincial announcements on a new hospital, we have to get that built. 192 bed long-term care center. We have to get that built. We've done a lot of work around downtown revitalization and planning it. Right. Now we actually have to get some shovels in the ground and get some of that work done. So lots of things that we've started. We just need to complete it. And it's the things we campaign on: high-speed internet, all the construction projects, that type of thing. So it's finishing what we started and then make sure that the entire council are being listened to and we're all working together on the projects that they've campaigned on as well.
And I did notice within your platform, one of the unique aspects that you were going to highlight and focus on within this term was the farmers and making sure that they felt that their land was protected. So how are you moving forward with that to make sure that they feel safe in their community?
Well, it's not really me who's making them feel safe, it's provincial policy. So Uxbridge is in the Greenbelt, in the Oak Ridges Moraine, and our land is protected through the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. So we just want to make sure that everyone in Uxbridge realizes where growth can happen and where it can't. And we are most excited about growing in our downtown.
Right.
Building out the downtown, we've pulled the downtown out of the floodplain with this culvert project, and now we actually have to get more people living and working in downtown Uxbridge.
I love it. Mayor Dave Barton, thank you for joining me today.
Great to see you.
That was another great interview. I wanted to know, before we talk about the interview, I did want to mention, as I said before, that some of the municipalities have decided to hold the results until they've got them all together before they put them out there. So if you're seeing zeros beside the names on the screen, it simply means that we don't have that information. It hasn't come out yet. But the second it does, you will have it. And you can see by the names across the bottom, which are the mayors, and the ones up the side, which are councillors, that a lot of the numbers are coming in from Whitby, from Uxbridge, and so forth. So that interview with Dave Barton.
Yes.
Was it fun to do?
It was incredibly fun. I have known Dave for many years. I talked to him when he was a ward councillor. I was on air with him back in my radio days while he was running for mayor of Uxbridge.
Right.
And I feel like I lived through his campaign journey. And I can tell you that he stepped into quite a trying couple of years there. He walked in the culvert project in Uxbridge was well underway.
Right.
I believe at the time it was well over budget. And there were just issues upon issues upon issues. He stepped in, he made it happen, he got Uxbridge out of that floodplain.
Right.
As soon as that happens, there's a tornado. That absolutely devastates the community, and Dave handled it like an absolute champion. Right. And I firmly believe that he is a mayor that really understands how to speak to his people and reach his people and guide his community, and it's just been fantastic to see him run, and it's fantastic to see him in for another couple of years. Yeah,
he's amazing. I had the pleasure of meeting him at an event in Ottawa, and he also came in with some turmoil because Gary Lynn O'Connor, who's the mayor, stepped up to the plate to take over Roger Anderson's seat as chair when he passed, and so it was quite a bit of excitement at the time.
Absolutely.
So, speaking of excitement, when you're acclaimed, I guess there isn't a whole lot. Our next guest is Steve Lee from Whitby, Ward 1 acclaimed. Steve, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Yeah, it's great to be here.
And congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was quite an interesting chunk of time over the summer. So
No kidding. You saved some wear and tear on your shoes, too.
a little wear and tear. We were still out there.
Were
We
you?
still
Yeah.
wanted to get out and chat with residents, meet everybody. A little less pressure, so it was good.
Okay. So your first election was 2018, correct?
That's right. Yeah. So this is a
And-
second term for myself.
Now, the election itself, was it exciting? Was it dull? Was it
The
interesting?
2018 or this one?
This one.
Yeah, no, I found it pretty exciting. Up until August 19th, we didn't know. So we were running a full campaign. We were outdoor knocking, dropping literature, meeting with residents. And you don't really know until the last day sort of what happened. And even right before the last day, there was a candidate that came in and then changed wards. So it was kind of a little bit of last minute excitement before we kind of got the final news that
Right.
we were acclaimed. So
Did you
that I was
put
acclaimed.
your name in early?
I did. I was in almost right at the beginning. I was
Okay.
away for a couple days in May there,
So-
and as close to the beginning as possible anyway.
So you were sure you wanted to do this?
100%.
So I'm just curious, what were voters telling you? What were their concerns?
Traffic is a big one in our town. Development in Brooklyn is growing at a really rapid pace, and it's going to continue so over the next 10 years or so. And traffic speeding is a huge one in our community. Brooklyn started as a small hamlet, a small village, and,
Right.
and obviously is not going to stay that way as we move forward. So that's a concern for residents, and rightfully so. We want to make sure that we can take care of that and look at the options as we move forward. So speeding, traffic, big ones for sure.
Yeah, I guess those are issues everywhere. I see speed limits dropping everywhere, and it should. They should, because
Absolutely.
there are more and more people. There are children walking streets everywhere. It's a very, very important
And
situation.
we've tried to do quite a bit in Whitby with the new speed humps that we're putting in, and we just had you mentioned the speed limits dropping. It was a motion of mine that went through just at the last cycle of council for staff to start looking at that in the town of Whitby as well too. So definitely things that we're taking a peek at as well.
There's going to be an upset in Whitby, right? You're going to have a new mayor.
New mayor, not sure what sort of an upset it'll be, I guess, but our old mayor, Mayor Mitchell, Don Mitchell, has retired and is retiring from council after 28 years. And so we've got two current councillors running for mayor, Elizabeth Roy and Deidre Newman, and both were on council last term. And one obviously, unfortunately, won't be on council moving forward, depending on what happens tonight. So,
Right.
Yeah.
You have your own business, right?
I do a couple of them.
A couple of them.
actually.
Yeah, I noticed that. You've got a couple of small businesses. You also live in Brooklyn.
I do. Yeah, I've lived in Brooklyn the last 17 years or so.
So how do you balance the business, the family, because you have a couple of little kids, right?
I
You have
do.
two
Yeah, they're
children?
little.
Yeah.
They're getting bigger and bigger these days with their heights. But yeah, younger kids at home. And it's definitely a balance time-wise. I've got great staff at both of my businesses that have managed to cover for me and really take care of things for me. So it's nice to have that we've gotten to a point with the businesses that I've got staff that I can rely on and trust, and they take care of a lot of the day-to-day for me. So
And I do have to before, and I'm sure these people have some questions about political side, the certified diving element.
Yes.
And I bring it up because I think John Henry, the chair, has that same sort of certification. He did diving in, I don't know, down in New Orleans area, something like that.
Yeah.
And so just for a second or two, tell us about that.
Yeah, I love it. I've been diving for years now, since 2007. And so I had an opportunity. Brian, really great friend of mine, owned Dive Source in Whitby, started in Whitby, moved to Oshawa, and he was retiring, so had a great opportunity to take over the business from him, which we did. Kept all his instructors, all his staff, and are trying to sort of keep it alive and keep it in our town here. So we moved it back to Whitby and sort of expanded it, and it's been great and something I'm passionate about. I enjoy as a hobby, and love to see more people get into it.
Maybe we can talk about that later. I live up in Scugog, and maybe we can go diving in Lake Scugog.
Absolutely. May not be the greatest visibility up there, but we can definitely get out.
I was thinking more of the shallow depths. I'd feel a lot safer.
Yeah,
for sure.
For sure.
Do you folks want to jump in on this?
I would love to jump in on this.
Please, yeah.
So you alluded to it earlier. Community is getting bigger.
It is.
More families moving to the area. Families that maybe don't understand how smaller, more rural, if you will, areas operate politically with their councils. How do you plan on reaching new residents within your ward to make sure they understand what you're going to do and what your purpose is for them?
Yeah, so one thing that I did in the past term of council, when we had new developments, I went out kind of just with a little info card, who I was, all the contact numbers for the city, the important ones that they would need, and just kind of welcoming them to the neighborhood and the residents. And people really loved it. It takes a bit of time. You've got to go around and say hi to everybody, but I felt it was important. A lot of them didn't really have political questions. They actually had more questions about Brooklyn and the history of Brooklyn, which was nice to be able to kind of give them a little bit of more detail, or they wanted to know where certain shops were, certain restaurants were. So that concierge type atmosphere and attitude I've always kind of been proud of, to be able to go out, speak with the residents, and be that connection for them. And I'll continue that moving forward.
It humanizes you even though you're just a human.
Yeah, I like, we like to be out there, and municipal politics is a little bit different because you can be so close to the resident, but not everybody wants to pick up the phone or comfortable picking up the phone. But once they've met you, they're a lot more comfortable doing it. So, yeah.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. Louise.
Well, I want to just sort of talk a little bit about the whole process of acclimation, because
Sure.
I think in some ways it's a positive and a negative. Now, what's interesting is you had an opportunity to knock on doors,
I did.
which is sort of a random selection of people as opposed to inviting them to come and visit or to come to an event or whatever if you're acclaimed. Did you see a difference in what the issues were when you were knocking compared to sort of meeting them after you were acclaimed?
No, not a huge difference. I think not everybody understood the acclimation process, so there was a little bit of questions about, oh, I don't have to vote for you, you're already it. Once they understood that process, then they went back into the normal sort of mode, if you would, of their concerns and their questions in the community, and what are we going to do, or what's coming up, or how are we going to address certain issues. So it was more the explanation of why it happened, what sort of the acclimation meant for them, and would I still be around, would I not be around, and
Right.
and what they had to do. So that wasn't necessarily fully clear. We had definitely had questions at the door on that. But in terms of the issues, absolutely the same, whether it was acclaimed or not. Once you got over that step, they want to tell you what they love and hate.
That's great. Good.
And they do voice their opinion, don't they?
Yeah, and I mean, that's the great thing about it, and being so close to the residents, is you get those
Right.
opinions and you can hear from them and actually make some change. So that's what I love about it.
And when you've been door knocking, have you ever had a person go, how do I take your job? How do I do that?
I haven't had that, but I will say I did have a couple of really great community people and residents call me, and they did want to know if I was running or not. And there were some conversations about that, and I will say that the two people that called me are very large supporters of mine, so when they did find out that I was running, it was sort of, all right, we're stepping away. But yeah, that was kind of as close as I got. I'm not sure everybody's looking for the politics jobs these days. It's a little bit of work these days.
I was going to say, would you care to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think just in the climate that we've had, the difficulties with COVID and just the constant changes that are happening with municipal rules. Is the facility open? Is it not open? It's been a lot of kind of constant changes and work, and I think it's been a struggle for people. It's been a struggle for us to keep up. And I'm not sure everybody's. There's been more people saying, I'm glad you're doing this, because it's not something I would want to do than wanting to take the job, so to speak.
And how do you manage all of that change and people coming to you with questions, and maybe you don't know the answers yet because you're waiting for the changes? How did you handle all that?
It was difficult. At one point in the beginning of the pandemic, it seemed like it was changing hourly.
Right.
And for me, it was always, I don't have the answer, hang tight, I'll do my best to get you the answer, or at least the best information that we can have. Now, Durham Health Department was great. We had great contacts there to try to get us the most up-to-date information as it came in, but it was constantly changing. One thing we would say 1 week would change 2 weeks later. So it was just trying to keep constantly posting on social media, constantly getting the information out there as best we could to the residents. Yeah.
You find social media to be a very helpful during this election?
I do, yeah. I try to use it a lot. We've got a couple different websites within Whitby as well, too. Obviously, the main Whitby website, Connect Whitby, is a great one for the projects that are happening. And so between sort of newspaper ads, publications that we can put out to let people know of the projects that are happening in Brooklyn and Whitby, and then social media, I try to use it as much as possible to, at least if residents need a place to look, get on there and we'll post as much as we can.
Did a lot of people comment on the way the town of Whitby handled the pandemic?
Yeah, we had comments, good and bad, positive and negative. You know, we still get a few comments now and then. Some of it's in sort of a hindsight type approach to it, which obviously looking at it from today's perspective is going to be different than looking at it from a March 2020 perspective.
Of course.
We tried to stay as proactive as possible, and I mean, you do, all of my decisions, all of council's decisions were, how can we do the best for our residents and make the best choices with the information that we have at the time. I think we handled it quite well in Whitby. There's things that we might have gone back and changed knowing what we know now, but at the time I think we handled it great.
First time for everybody on that one, right?
Brand new and nobody knew, right?
And a lot of people, I think, people tend to blame politicians or government immediately for anything that and I'm sure, Louise, you will attest to that.
It's true.
And it's so easy to lay blame with something, but I always feel for people because it's never happened before. You've never gone through it before. And
no, we had information that came in daily, weekly, updating, and you're trying to make decisions as quickly as possible in the best interests of the town and of residents to keep people safe and to keep things open and keep things moving. And you do what you can with the info at the time and change it as we went along. So.
Right. But, well, we're certainly glad that you're in, that you're back.
Yeah.
I bet you are too. Although I'm sure you would have liked to have a few, people running again, so you can really get out there and do it.
It is nice. It is nice. I do enjoy the campaign trail.
So. I'm sure it's different. Like, it's something you've been through once, but they're never the same, right? Everything changes. There are more people now, there are more issues now, different issues and so forth.
A lot of new residents in Brooklyn moving in, people that maybe aren't the old Brooklynites per se that have been there their entire lives and are sort of newer to Brooklyn as the community changes. And it changes the issues as the new residents move in and new demographic as well.
Right. Well, Steve, thank you very, very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Sharing your information about Whitby. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All the best for the next 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, whatever it's going to be.
I hope to be around for a while. I enjoy it.
There you go.
Stay on the hamster wheel.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Good luck. Enjoy the rest for the next couple of weeks because you're going to be working hard.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right. The numbers are continuing to come in. I wanted to, and I did want to mention again about municipalities holding on to their numbers until they're all together. So when you don't see any numbers beside names, it means that we don't have the information yet. As soon as we have it, you will have it. There was an issue in Scugog, which if you tuned in at the beginning, the clerk from Scugog Township, Becky Jameson, had mentioned that there was a technical issue which they have resolved, and they have consequently kept the polls open until I believe it's 9:30. There is also an issue with the technology in Pickering, which we're trying to get to the bottom of that. So you mentioned, Louise, acclamations earlier.
Yeah.
And it's kind of an interesting area because there are a lot of acclamations.
Yes.
We can look at the numbers as to how many there are, but I'm curious why you think that would be.
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons for it. One is some of the municipalities have changed the rules in spending, so you can't self-finance a campaign anymore. So that's reduced sometimes the number of councillors running, and it's an expensive process to get out and knock on doors or to call, to put up signs, especially when they disappear, which they often do in campaigns. Right. It's an expensive process. So I think, it's almost an affordability thing. You can spend, anywhere from a few $1,000s to, $50,000 or $60,000, and you may not win the job.
I hear the money's really good, though.
Well, that's another story. There's many people feel that it should be public service, but I think there's a lot of hours councillors put in. So I think it's important that there, be some pay. Now, do we get better councils paying more or not? I don't know. I think that's a really good debate.
Yeah.
That's a good debate.
I think you have to be passionate about public service to do a good job, right? The
Yeah.
price tag is one thing, but also you have to want to do the job.
Well, 100%. For me, it was always a calling. It was something that I was passionate about in my community, and there was projects that I wanted to champion. So I never viewed it as a job. And certainly when I started in the game, I think, I was getting $16,000 or $24,000 for a lot of years.
Wow.
And then it bumped up a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, but you have to be passionate about it. There's a lot of
course.
time you're not with your family.
Of
Right.
course. We have someone on the line now. We have Adrian Foster, the mayor-elect for Clarington, who is going to chat with us via telephone. Mr. Foster.
Good evening, all. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I am well. I'm not in the quietest spot, but it's quieter than on the other side of the door.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
I believe this makes the start of the 13th year doing this. Is that correct? You've been at it for 12?
Yes, it'll be the fourth term as mayor. So yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. I just wanted to ask you, what are the big issues? I know you're a big advocate of obviously the GO train expansion, the new hospice and the hospital and the extension. What other issues and events are you going to be fighting for, so to speak?
So the a big thing that we heard, and I'm guessing that it was right across the entire all of Durham region, was traffic issues. People are sick to death of folks speeding down city streets, blowing through stop signs. Tough to deal with and maintain, but that's going to be a big piece. The other, obviously, is inflation. We've got budgets coming up. We are going to have to bring in what I'm going to call really responsible budgets. It's going to be tough balancing the needs of the municipality and the need that our taxpayers have to not see big increases.
Right. I have with me Taylor Bursey and Louise Parks, whom I'm sure you know, who also have a few questions that they wanted to throw at you.
Well, you touched on inflation there, and inflation is a tough thing for you as a council to control. So how are you guys going to navigate that? Do you have an idea of how you're going to tackle that budget?
The only way, frankly, that we're going to be able to tackle that is pulling on the rate stabilization fund. So, that, as all of you know, is a fund that surpluses go into. So this year we are going to have to lean on that heavily.
That sounds like a good strategy there. And, earlier Jonathan mentioned that you were passionate about the GO train expansion. Talk to us a little bit about that process. What was it like for you to get that ball or that track moving, if you will?
Oh, gosh. I mean, we have worked on this for so many years and got a little bit off track, with the Ford government when they suggested it would be south of the 401. Then got it back on. I can tell you that with John Henry as the regional chair, he and I worked when he was the mayor of Oshawa, worked closely together with John at the region, and Dan in Oshawa. The region has stepped up in a really significant fashion. Seeing the money in the budget, some of the contracts that Metrolinx has signed, we know that it is a matter of when. It is no longer a matter of if. And now it would be really good to pin the province down on some times.
Great. Louise, did you want to?
Congratulations,
Thank you,
Mayor. Delighted to see you back. Willie Woo was talking about that incredible feeling in Clarington of rural urban, and how are you going to move forward? Balancing those two things with the growth pressures that we're experiencing within the Oshawa CM, census metropolitan area that includes Clarington as well.
So that is going to be the trick moving forward, especially with the challenges that we got with some of the provincial legislation and the changes moving forward. I would hope that we are able to put, the higher density, higher towers in around the MTSAs, the transit areas, focus on Bowmanville and Curtis as much as possible. And I'm oversimplifying here. But it would be nice if we can keep the villages and hamlets as villages and hamlets, retain the country flavor of those. Again, do I see Newcastle, the village there, as a spot for high density and tall buildings? I don't. But that's going to be the trick of the years, is managing the need for housing, because there is a housing crisis. Managing the expectations of the province, and then managing the expectations of the public to retain the character of Clarington.
Mm-hmm. And if I could, just following up on that, Clarington has this incredible, around the hamlets, and Bowmanville, heritage homes. Do you see, with the infill that's occurring, pressure on your incredible built heritage and as well, and your natural heritage features?
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting with the suggestions that infill development, it might happen regardless of zoning. So that's a challenge that we're going to have to meet, and we may have to meet head on.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you very much. I know you're busy. You probably have a lot of people standing around you. And again, congratulations from all of us and everyone in the region for doing what you do, and for taking up the task and being successful. So congratulations, and thank you very much for the call.
Well, and thank you all for doing what you're doing, which is helping to inform folks. So you have a good night, and thanks for this call.
Thank you. Look forward to the next 4 years.
All right. Bye-bye now. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you. So we have some more numbers coming in. People can see them on the screen. We were just chatting about acclamations prior to Mr. Foster's call. And I wanted to know if you think that social media gives people an opportunity to very easily bash politicians, if that has anything to do with people not wanting to run.
Oh, that's a good question. Social media was just coming on as I was leaving council in 2010. I think, thinking about it, yes. Most people, they want to get involved in politics to help their community and serve their community, and it's altruistic. And then people are saying the most god-awful things about you, and they don't even know you, they haven't met you.
Right.
And I think it's harder on the family than it is on the candidate or the politician. But I think that does have something to do with it.
Yeah.
And I think we're also struggling with the idea that people don't want to have discourse anymore. They don't want to have civil conversation. It seems that everybody wants their opinion to be heard the way that they want it, and they want the changes to be made the way that they see fit. And sometimes we have to realize that there are a lot of behind-the-scene factors to the idea that you have, and maybe that's why it's not coming to fruition as fast as you may think it is. So instead of getting mad at your local council member or your mayor or anybody, just if we could all learn to take a moment to have some grace for the person on the other end of that screen, if you will, I think we would get a lot more accomplished and a lot more done if we could just voice our opinions in a more civil way and have that discourse and that understanding rather than that pack mentality, if you will. But social media allows for that pack mentality, which is not a fault of the platform, it's just how we use it. Yeah. That's the problem.
True, and it is a great place to hide. It really is, to hide behind. And I always liken it to people when they're in a car. You become very, very aggressive, very powerful when you're in the car. And once you're out of that, you're just yourself. And I liken social media to that. People will say things, and I've read stuff on some of the platforms that is just totally unnecessary, very cruel. And I question why people would want to run for office with that sort of stuff being thrown at you all the time.
I will say, as somebody who partakes in social media, likes the digital age, if you will, likes to use it themselves, I can relate best to a candidate or a mayor, if you will, that uses social media to talk about what they're doing and to encourage people to get out and vote and to use the platform to educate me on what's going on. I'm not the generation that picks up the newspaper or picks up the local magazines or turns on, the radio every day, even though look, I come from a traditional media background. I have a lot of respect for traditional media. It's just not how my generation is hardwired. So that's why I'm passionate about asking these candidates, are they using social media to help push forward the narrative? Because I think, you know, this election is going to be very telling, voter turnout wise, and the next election will be as well, because you're going to see a lot of new families, younger families come to these communities that won't be tapped into what's going on unless it is on social media.
Right.
And you can turn around and say, oh, that's not great, you know, they need to work with how we do things, or we could dabble in every single avenue and make sure we're educating every type of demographic on exactly what's going on. So yes, it's unfortunate that people like to use the platform to push their ideas on politicians, if you will, but I also think it's an excellent tool for politicians to use to reach their audience and to reach a different audience.
Right.
So
Very well said.
I'm pro social media.
I think we all are in this day and age. I think you have to be. Mayor Drew summed it up the other day when she mentioned, and I forget the exact wording, but something to the effect that social media is there to put out the messages that you want people to understand so that they know what's going on. It is not a place to debate. So the idea of getting into one-on-ones with people on social media can be very, very dangerous, I guess, for lack of a better word. But it is definitely, it's certainly, I think the internet is here to stay too. I've heard this.
Oh, it's a thing.
For sure.
And you know, funny enough, I think when it comes to people voicing their concerns and opinions, they're always typing them. You know, they're always putting it in writing. But when a politician or somebody gets on social media and makes a video where they can showcase their personality, people fall in love with them and they feel their passion and their excitement. I think earlier you're talking about people do this job because they love their community and they love what they're doing and they're passionate about their platform. If you can feel that contagion, you want to subscribe to it. And I think social media is a wonderful way. Being on this show is a wonderful way for people to showcase their personality. So that's another point to social media as well.
Excellent point, for sure.
Right. You mentioned, you touched on young families.
Yes.
And that's sort of an entire issue unto its own, because in areas where people are moving in who are young, who have jobs, who are in an economy where it's very difficult to make things work, to make ends meet, they have a little bit more in their mind than the local politics. And I guess the question that I would throw out to both of you is how do you reach new families in an area, or young families in an area?
Well, you've got to tap into the issues of interest to them. And I remember when Councillor John Neal, his first election that he ran, he knocked on every door in his ward in the north of Oshawa, and he knew the community, the young families wanted recreational facilities up there.
Right.
And then as people were knocking on the door, we were hearing the same thing. So when he came on council, that became sort of a number one priority. For council. It was, there was some headwinds that council had to go through, sort of almost an inertia not to spend money at that point on anything. But, when you knock on those doors, you hear what the people want, because it's a random sample.
Right.
And that's so important to do every 3 years or 4 years.
And I think Steve touched on that earlier too, with the whole idea of being a concierge of your community. If you know your people and you know what they want, you're able to create that change or foster that inclusion. And that makes the difference for young families and established families.
Well, 100%. And when I was on council, what I tried to do, because I had, 2 large wards, with some of the new growth and the new projects, especially developers, is we would have community meetings and have the developers present to the community, and then the community would tell us sort of, what direction, what changes they wanted to see. And it really was a win-win in many cases. And in other cases, they were quite clear that this was going to have alter the community too much. So, they were more resistant. But you knew, because you engaged everyone together. And that's powerful when you can do that.
And on Willie's point earlier about council meetings being live streamed and this being available on YouTube, I think that's a wonderful idea. You have the council, you're able to discuss, talk to the developers, but it's also available on YouTube for the young, hardworking family that can't make the 6 o'clock council time. They can watch it after, send an email with their thoughts and opinions, and then you have a holistic viewpoint of exactly what your people want and how you can move forward.
Well, 100%. Now in Oshawa, it's 9 a.m. meetings, I think now, so it's worse. I like the 6 p.m. meetings. but
it's an emerging technology.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's emerging for sure.
We do have an interesting situation going on in Ward 2 in Ajax, where Nancy Henry is 33 votes ahead of the incumbent Ashmead Khan, which is quite interesting. I'm not sure if that's a final number. That is a final. Sorry, Nancy Henry has been elected, which is a bit of an upset there in Ward 2 in Ajax.
Wow.
That's a
By 33
surprise.
votes.
33, double threes. Wow.
Every
that's,
vote counts.
Absolutely, absolutely. It really, really annoys me when people, they say, oh, I'm not going to vote because my spouse is voting the opposite and they're going to cancel out and so forth, or people just don't step up to the plate and vote. I mean, I don't have all the numbers for voting, but I know Scugog about 3:30 this afternoon had about 15% turnout.
In the year in 2018, it was 45%.
Is that
So
right?
that's a significant dip.
Yeah, that's.
I'm sure they'll have a recount for Ajax
Oh, well.
with 33 votes.
I mean, better to be sure,
Absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
definitely an upset nonetheless.
So, Louise, you touched a little bit on the cost of running an election. And I guess a lot of people don't really understand how the money is spent, where it comes from, and who gets to use what. So, let's say that you put your name in a hat to run for councillor.
Yes.
And let's say you're in an area with 10,000 people. How does it work financially?
Well, you can raise money anywhere in Ontario. So you can tap friends and family first, and folks that you may have met, because most people that run for council or political office have community roots. They've volunteered, so they've got a pretty substantive electronic Rolodex these days.
Right.
So those are the folks you go to first to raise the funds, and then you set a budget. And signs are very, very expensive now. Those large signs are several dollars each.
Right.
3 colors. I would never do a 3-color sign. They would be, I can only imagine how much they are, $7-8 a sign.
Wow.
So when you see them broken in half or defaced, and there was a lot of that in Oshawa that I noticed this campaign, it's disheartening. Or if someone's stealing your stakes, that's worse. So companies used to be able to donate. They can't anymore.
Okay.
So and it used to be most of the donors were doing business with the city. And it's a little bit difficult taking money from developers because there's a perception of, even though there was a limit of what they could donate, there's a perception of a conflict there. So now it's just individuals, but it's tough. You've got to have it together to raise the funds, and not everyone can. You can't self-fund your total campaign, but I believe you can spend up in Oshawa anyway $10,000.
I was going to say, is there a limit to what you can raise? Because if not, you not run the risk that
there is a limit.
The wealthy people.
Yeah, there is a limit based on how many constituents you have in the ward.
Okay.
So it's a calculation.
Do you find it hard to reach out to individuals to ask them to donate towards your campaign?
Well, I think when you stand for office, you're one of those people that's forward. You have that skill to say,
Really?
hey,
I
could use some funds. So no, I think it comes with the territory, and that's part of the democratic process, right?
Right.
And the one thing with the internet, you can do smaller donors and get more of them, and that works really well. But I would do a mix of events and. And just general solicitation, and I was able to raise some money usually.
Right.
So.
And you can always use those signs again.
You can use it. Listen, I got a warehouse full of signs.
Well, when you come back, then.
Yeah, I haven't got to the dump yet, but you just always hold on to your signs. And
It
your
sounds like you
stakes.
need to. With
Yeah,
the price
well-
of them going up and up, you might as well hold on to them.
100%.
The,
100%.
The regional chair, John Henry, is well out in front with 52,000 plus votes. So I saw that number come across. It's not final yet, but he is well in the lead.
There are
So-
some interesting numbers popping up on the screen here. Some close races, some races that aren't so close, numbers still coming in. So make sure to keep your eye on the screen and watch these numbers as they come in live. It's pretty exciting.
I see, is it Mayor Collier in Ajax was reelected? I believe I saw that. But,
Yes, that is correct.
there you go. All righty. So let's talk a little bit about communications, because we touched on it a bit with social media, but communicating is one of the biggest downfalls of any organization, be it government, industry, whatever. Getting the message to the people, getting it to the people properly and promptly is very, very important. Do you see that increasing, getting better, so to speak?
Well, I think there's passive communication, right? Information out. Really, the most valuable thing is when there's a dialogue, right? With your constituents. So, how do you do that? You do that, I guess, by attending events and just being out there in the community.
One of the drawbacks,
more than anything else.
One of the drawbacks now, of course, is because of social media, people are not getting accurate facts.
Correct.
Right? And
yes.
consequently, they're starting to believe things that are not true. So the advice is always go to the township websites, go to the town's websites to get the accurate information. Don't just pick it up on social media and such. But it seems sometimes that something happens and it takes a long time for that to disseminate down to the average person. I don't really know why that is, but it just seems to be. Do you not find that?
No, I would agree, and I looked at some of the websites in Durham region, and you know what? They're all pretty darn good. They're fabulous, especially about new projects that are coming on and issues in the various wards, etc. So I would commend staff. I think they've done a really good job in the last 4 years, improving the websites in the municipalities and at the region.
Right.
And I would say it's a trickle-down effect, right? You've got the information coming from a council meeting. It's probably got to go through 2 communications advisors, then probably a legal overview before it's posted on the website. So I think that's what maybe contributes to some of the quote delay with it being on the websites. And that's why I am such a big advocate of mayors and councillors getting on their cell phones, filming that video of them talking about exactly what's going on, because when it comes straight from the source, there isn't as many fact checks that need to happen, if you will. There's obviously still a round of fact checking, but when it comes from the person, it can get out a little bit quicker, and you also have that confidence that it's the correct information because you're seeing it and hearing it from somebody that you know is real and know is the source.
The communications people are now cringing, right?
Well, I, as a communications person myself, know the process, so I feel you out there, and I'm sorry if I bursted your bubble a little bit, but just here to play both sides.
But let's compliment to Rogers. I can do that because I'm the guest. Televising council meetings is so important because people can listen if there's issues that are really on the agenda, and they can follow along. And also our print media, traditional print media, it's falling back. But when you're trying to get information, having the newspapers really does help. So that's important too. And I still believe in traditional media because there's a discipline to traditional media.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation you can have around that because print is a dying breed. It will eventually be replaced with technology. I also see a lot of the smaller newspapers around Ontario are advertising anything and everything they can get just to pay the bills and no longer relative. And I had a conversation with a reporter not long ago about the responsibility of reporting facts as compared to opinions.
Yes.
And a lot of times, especially with the internet reporting, opinions are great, but that's an editorial and it has to be labeled as such. Facts are the things that have to be sent out, that have to be accurate. And I know CBC is going through this right now as a big undertaking, that reporters should not have the right to give their opinion constantly because they're influencers, right? And it's just not fair. So they do have to report the fact. You know yourself that if you say something about somebody or about a situation, even if it's wrong, once it's said, it's done. It's out there, and there's no taking it back. So it's interesting. The whole communication element is interesting.
And I think on an opinion piece, especially in the traditional media, whether that be a newspaper or a magazine, the word opinion is written in bold across the top. So there's no mistaking it. Well, I'm sure there's still some circumstances where people mistake it for fact, but there's a lot of information out there to say this is somebody's opinion. You can read it, but it's an opinion. Whereas social media can't replicate that. So a beautiful balance of both, where community members are still reading their local newspapers and appreciating the fact that people are taking time to write down and print everything that's going on, as well as tapping into some of the websites and other forums that do disseminate that information as well would be a great way for people to start combating that misinformation, if you will.
Absolutely. I write for I write about 5 columns a month, so I'm all in favor of keeping print for as long as we possibly can. And they are opinions, and it says that right in the column.
Yeah.
So I'm covered. I wanted to also touch on land protection, because land is being gobbled up by developers, for housing, for stores, for retail, for businesses, for everything. And I was at a meeting, a candidate meeting in Scugog about a week or so ago, and a couple of people voiced their opinion that the parklands, are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller for residential areas. And so, having been on council, is that something that you pay attention to?
Yes.
Are there rules in place?
Well, it's the regional plan is sort of the overriding plan, and there was a very contentious debate with regards to absorbing more farmland for development, and it moved ahead. So they're going to be, I think there was 3 options given, and they decided to swallow up more green fields for development. So it's a big issue, and it's especially a big issue, I think, in Clarington, parts of Whitby, Oshawa, but Ajax and Pickering are still growing too. So that's a very, very serious issue. And how fast can we grow, absorb all the new residents, and still maintain the level of service that we want?
That's very true. That's what it comes down to. I know the infrastructure is the most important part. In the north, they're building. There's no question about it. But do the people have an opportunity to take a bus to downtown, say Uxbridge or downtown Port Perry? Are there buses? Are there taxis? Is there an infrastructure that gets them there? Obvious schools are an issue. Do people work in the big city down south, or do they work locally? And how are they going to get there? That sort of thing. So as the land gets swallowed up, I'm hoping that somebody is paying attention to all these details. And
If I may, I do know Durham Region Transit has a fabulous transit on demand program,
right,
where if a bus is not available, you can reach out to Durham Region Transit and tap into that for the same fee you would if you were to ride a bus to wherever your destination is on their route. Transit is definitely going to be something that our communities need to look at more seriously within the coming years. I know that they're already starting to tap into that, but as we get bigger and expand more, and you have people coming from the city who maybe don't drive, you move to a rural community,
you get anywhere.
You need to drive, or you're taking the heel toe express at this point. So that's definitely something. And I think another thing council has to combat, if you will, is there's a lot of first-time home buyers, or the retirement community that's looking for affordable housing and saying that there isn't really much out there for them. And you look at our communities and you see, well, there's a ton of new infrastructure coming, land decreasing, yet there's still nowhere to live.
I know.
In our eyes. So how do you combat that, really?
Well, I think, the province now is on board, thank God, and it really with the leadership of the region and the municipalities in Oshawa and Clarington to do the growth, focus it around the transit hub. So, downtown Oshawa, well, I guess, at the old Nob Hill is going to have a GO station, and then there'll be one in Curtis and in Bowmanville proper. So that's where we can get the growth, the multi-residential growth. Hopefully it'll be more affordable. I'd like to see a balance of, I'd like to see actually developers having to incorporate affordable units into their buildings. They've done it in the United States to great success, and in other municipalities, and I'd like to see Durham region hasn't adopted that yet.
That would be interesting. You're dating yourself when you say Nob Hill, you know that.
I know.
I just came across one of their little baskets in the garage the other day. I thought, oh my gosh, that's a few years ago.
Yes, it was.
The whole housing issue, of course, is a big concern, especially to small businesses, because this is a really interesting, and I won't call it a recession because it's not, but it's an interesting, tough time, because normally the time that we're under, jobs should be very, very hard to get, sort of thing. Or sorry, it should be very easy to get. Right now, you can't find employees anywhere. which
No,
is very,
no.
very unique. And a big part of that is that there's nowhere for them to live near where they can work, right? There's other reasons too, I'm sure, but it's very difficult. I know there's somebody who has to pay for their employees' 407 bill to get them to come to work. And that's pretty sad when that happens.
And that's expensive.
Tell me about it.
That's very expensive.
Very expensive.
Yeah, transit is going to be a big issue for you guys over the next couple of years. I definitely think it's going to be a reoccurring conversation, and I think once the transit piece is figured out, the housing piece is probably quick to follow, or maybe vice versa. But you guys have an interesting time ahead with that.
Well, I don't. I'm off the hook, but I will certainly, in my community involvement, be following it. And I think transit is one of the key issues for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I did just get the word that Dan Carter has been confirmed the winner for Oshawa as mayor.
Okay.
Rogers TV has declared him the winner.
That's right. And that makes it so.
Yes.
There you go. All right. So, what about taxation? Is that an area you want to touch upon? I know we're undertaxed. I get that.
Oh yeah. Well,
I throw that
Oshawa
out
leads the pack, okay, in taxation. I think investment should, growth should pay for growth. And there was a change a while ago with regards to the way they were calculating tax. North Oshawa was paying a little bit more. The more established communities, to the south of Taunton were paying less. That sort of has changed over the last few years. It's equal, well, not quite equal, but it's moving in that direction. But taxation's a big issue, and you want healthy reserve funds, but we shouldn't be overtaxing.
Right.
And if you look at the growth of the reserves at the region, in some of the municipalities, it's pretty substantial. And the question is, does it need to? It doesn't need to be that, but I guess the other thing is with GM pulling back, right, and all of them not fully utilizing their former floor plate, and then they won the big tax appeal. There was a significant tax appeal, as you know,
Yes.
Right.
likely, Taylor, and I'm hoping that they've accumulated those funds anticipating the loss of GM. It's going to hit Oshawa and Durham.
And I believe that Adrian touched on it earlier on his phone call, but you also have inflation to take into account. So when you look at restructuring taxation and all that, and you look at how to balance out tax for residents, a lot of people year over year saw inflation at 8%, 8.5%, something like that. And their income didn't rise by 8%. So when you look at balancing out taxes and looking at changing the tax structure, it could be a shock for a lot of residents. So I wonder how local councils will combat that, or if they even are able to.
Well, they're going to have to combat it because it's going to be a significant issue. But there was a point in Oshawa when 50% of the residents worked in Oshawa. Well, we're now a full-scale bedroom community. We're sort of a boundary and edge city.
Right.
And people are commuting into Toronto to work, so that's a big part of it. But yeah, taxation is going to be an issue, and as we want industrial, companies to come here because they share the tax burden, corporate and industrial rates. But that's going to be big pressure.
Where do we stand? Do you know where we stand in respect to other communities, let's say Halton or areas like that, tax-wise? Are we higher, lower, the same?
My guess is, I don't have current figures, but my
Right.
guess is we're higher.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly higher than Toronto.
We're a very large region. And
We are a very large
quite sparse.
region.
You
Yeah.
look at the north, I mean, there's not a whole lot of growth up there. There's growth, but there's not comparative.
And we got to think about it. We can't have buses, empty buses going all. We have to be innovative. Where you call someone with a van that picks you up.
Right.
They may have to be private-public partnerships, and that creates jobs too in the community, and it gives people an opportunity to live in different spots that perhaps are less expensive, as you were saying.
And I wonder too, I think we've read about it a little bit, but electric vehicles, electric public transportation modes, will that decrease or increase the cost of travel within our communities? I don't know. but it's an interesting take.
Yeah, we got to think it out. We have to think it out for sure.
Yeah, we can't. The price of gasoline. We can't keep doing this forever.
No, it's very expensive.
And I don't expect it's going to go down very, very soon. I understand that on Wednesday they're going to raise the interest rate again for Canada. So it's, but you know, I think the reality is that we had a pandemic. The government looked after everybody during that pandemic, and if anybody thought that that was a free lunch, they were mistaken. So somewhere we just been. Some interesting numbers. I wanted to mention that Rogers is now in Kawartha Lakes.
Yes.
We have taken them on as a partner, and very pleased to all the folks up there. I'm just looking here at the last election, over 25,000 people voted in Kawartha Lakes, and they're on track to do that again. As of 3:25 this afternoon, 20,000 people voted. So in Kawartha Lakes, which is an awesome amount. They have got a slew of people running up there. I looked at the list, and there was no end to it.
That must be why they have such strong community engagement. A lot of people out there door knocking.
No kidding. They have 6 people running for the mayor. Each ward has at least 3. Ward 4 has 7 people running. It's there's a lot of people running up there, so it'll be interesting to get those numbers once they come in to see what's going on there. So that'll be new for us this time around.
I wonder what the streets look like too with all those signs. Is everyone's lawn decorated up there? What's going on?
That's true. It's a large area, so yeah, that's true. And is it? Do they have to have the signs down shortly after the election? There's a law about that, isn't there?
Well, generally they come down in about 3 days.
Okay.
And you can always tell a well-organized campaign because they have them down that night, or they put "thank you" on their signs if they're the lucky winner.
Right.
But you know, you usually have a few days before the city starts yanking them out. But they're expensive. You really want to take them down,
Right.
and save them if you have future ambitions. So.
And I did hear one time that it's frowned upon to take them down if they're not your campaign, or if you're a public resident and you go to take down some signs.
Yes.
It's not really.
Yeah. So when we put signs up, we'd always put a note in the door. You know, leave your sign up. Someone will be around to pick it up. Now you miss some, but usually if they haven't taken it off and put it at the side of their house, you catch it.
Right, because you need those for the next time around.
You need those for the next time around. They'll be around to get the sign if they're a serious candidate.
Or for the storage locker.
Yeah. And if they don't come, you know, those baggy signs, they make great things to stake up your tomatoes or your peonies. So I think that's why some of them were disappearing.
And this is now becoming a gardening show.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, it's not. So back to the Kawartha Lakes. It has a population of just shy of 80,000 people, which occupy 40,000 households, and a total of 71,000 voters. So in Kawartha Lakes. So that's quite a lot. Those numbers, by the way, come from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. They're the source for these numbers. And there's some interesting ones. Ajax has 126,000 people,
Wow.
86,000 households, and 86,000 eligible voters. And in 2018, the population was 119,000. So that is 7,000 people more than there were in 2019.
Wow.
That's a lot.
You had a 32% voter turnout last time around.
Oshawa quite a bit too.
Oshawa has a lot of people, 175,000, and they had 159,000 4 years ago. So that's a big increase.
Big change.
As well. 66,000 households and 122,000 eligible voters. But in 2018, their voter turnout was 24%, which is quite low.
That is quite
I think that was the lowest in the region last time around in 2018.
You're probably right.
Yeah, I think Ajax was the highest. Yeah, it was 38.29. I think that was in Ajax.
Okay.
And we were 24.6, the lowest.
Any idea why it was so low?
Sorry, the total voter turnout was 38.29. Ajax was 32.9.
Okay.
Well, I don't think we had as many ways to vote.
Okay.
You know, I like mail-in ballots. I like internet voting when they master that. We should be doing everything, making it easy for people to vote and having more polling places.
But you did make a good point earlier about having that paper trail. If something goes wrong.
100%, you got to have a paper trail.
Yeah, there's something to be said for having the backup plan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I like the mail-in voting. That worked great. Some people don't feel comfortable with it. I've always wondered, why hasn't someone developed an app for, for elections in which it's a virtual polling place, so the poll clerk's there and you just get in a line waiting for your time to go on, hold up your ID, your face, they connect you, then you move into the private voting booth. To me, it's simple technology. Why aren't we doing that?
There you go. There's something to go.
Brilliant.
So I'm waiting for someone to develop the app. I wish I was in IT.
Is that a challenge to the viewers today?
Yeah, because we should be doing it at every level of government. It's like, I was in the book business. That was my career, and that was the advent of the internet, right?
Right.
We're in the information business. We're not in the book business. We don't have to print a book. We just have to publish information. You can publish it on the internet, you can publish it in CD-ROM, you can publish it in a book. And you got to remember what business we're in. We're in the business of getting people to vote. And if you want people to vote, you got to make it easy. And if they don't trust the internet, well, then have them go into a virtual polling booth. I'm here, you're here, and I show my ID, they verify the ID, the address, all of that, and then you can't collect your voting card and vote for your son who's off at university, or vote for granny that doesn't want to vote.
Definitely.
So
That's, so we'll be voting on TikTok pretty soon. I can sense this. I can see
I
where
like the
this
way
is
this
going.
is going.
See where
Maybe
it's
you
going.
have to do a dance too, a unique dance to verify your identity.
There's some interesting statistics about women in politics in Ontario, and of the 6,658 people that are running as candidates, 1,808 or 27% are female, which is an increase of 24% over a 2014 election, which is still not a great increase in my opinion. But of the 477 acclamations that we had, 138 of them were female, which is 29% of the acclamations. And of the 2,366 candidates elected to office, 698 were women. That's 42%.
So let me ask you this, as a female who has been within this sphere for many years, did you ever feel like you were at a disadvantage because you were a female?
No, actually, in municipal politics, I think being a woman, you're at an advantage.
Yeah.
There were many men and women that wanted women on council, so the fact you were a woman, they were going to mark your vote. They'd have to like you and like your policies and your platform, but I viewed it always as an advantage, to be honest. Federal, provincially, it's a little bit different, I think, but certainly municipal, they like to see women candidates. We had 2 on the last council. I hope we don't lose one. And I'd like to see more, because as we know, it changes the conversation. It's a different kind of energy. It's a different perspective. There's more of a focus perhaps on families and seniors. I always thought they were the bookends of a healthy community, both your seniors and families with young children. So if you take care of those, I think everyone in the middle is taken care of.
Definitely. I just wish there was more of an emphasis on who was the best qualified for the job and who cared the most, as opposed to, oh, they're a female, let me check it off. I think it's a double-edged sword no matter how you look at it. I think it's very inspiring that women are getting into politics and caring about the community and being active and involved. I'd like to encourage the public to do their due diligence and know exactly who they're voting for and why they're voting for them and why they want them to be involved. And I do hope to see more of everyone getting involved in their community.
Well, that's an excellent point, because really, your first day is your best day on council in that, so it's what you bring.
Right.
It's your academic credentials, it's your community credentials, it's your soft skills. Really, you want to bring those to the job, and so it's a good thing to have a little bit of experience. Although I was delighted to see, in going through some of the candidates, they have different lived experience. So we're starting to see some diversity in lived experience, which is terrific.
Right.
Which is really terrific.
When you say lived experience, what exactly?
Well, just really representing different communities. There was Stravato was a school board trustee candidate, and he was running because he had an autistic child. And I think, bringing that into the dialogue on a school board is really important. I think we had our first trans candidate in Oshawa. That is a different perspective, and an autistic woman. That is a very different perspective to bring on to council.
Right.
So it's good to see that's sort of in the mix of the candidates you can choose from.
Different life paths, different career paths, all of it works
Yeah.
together to bring that more holistic view that we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely, and the candidates that aren't successful tonight, I hope they get involved in the community and they try to get on some community boards so that they can share that experience within the community, and that's sort of how you build up your resume.
And I think that's a tough thing too, right? Where you might not win the election or the position that you want, but if you want to create change and you want to foster change and make it happen, you've got to find ways to be involved in the community. And the more involved you are, the more people you meet, the more votes you might get in the future, and then you
100%.
try again. I don't think it's ever a one and done process for anybody, especially when you're passionate about what you're advocating for. So even if you aren't successful this time around, who's to say that you won't be the next time?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, your points are very valid, and I wish really they could carry that through industry as well as politics, as a way of life. And I keep hearing, we've come a long way, but we have a long, long way to go, without question. Just looking at some more numbers here. The total number of females elected as heads of council are 92 in Ontario, 80 mayors, 11 reeves, 1 regional chair, and 833 councillor seats are held by females.
Wonderful.
So, not good enough,
Well,
but it's a start, right?
exactly. You got to start somewhere. You got to keep building.
Absolutely. So I had an interesting thought, because a lot of people who are on council as mayors, regional councillors as such, are also part of many, many other organizations that like the Police Services Board, for example, the Kawartha Lakes, and so forth. So when they finish their term at council, all those positions are going to be vacant, right?
Yes, if they're a council appointee, yes.
So how do they divvy that up? Do they give the new council a choice? Like, hey, would you like to be on the Accessible Housing Committee? Would you like to be in?
Yeah, so for the positions that are available to council, there would be a caucus before the first council meeting, and in that caucus, council votes. Sometimes it's some municipalities, have it by a show of hands. Others have it on private ballot. I think you get a better result on private ballot,
Right.
but maybe not. They like it to be a show of hands so that they can, make sure you're sticking to the trade, because it's
Right.
all negotiated typically. So that's usually what happens. Sometimes, though, it's who wants to serve, because there'll be some of the new councillors want to serve on more boards. Some of the incumbents would rather have fewer boards.
Right.
So that's how it's divvied up.
Yeah, there are hundreds of committees. There's the Heritage Committee. There's
Yep.
all kinds of committees
Yep.
in every council. So it becomes not an upset, but it becomes quite a challenge. Like you get the gig as councillor, and you're excited because this is brand new, and now you've got all these other things that you may not know a whole lot about that you've got to learn and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's quite a task. It's quite a
But
task.
see, that's what gives the incumbency advantage, because if they're on these boards, then they're making contacts.
Right.
Their roots are going into the community deeper, so it's easier the next time when you're on council, because you have more supporters
Yep.
built in. So those committees are important, and that's where I learned everything about the city.
Right.
And got to meet the movers and shakers, the people behind the scenes that are really making things happen in the community.
Right.
Which has to have an incredible impact. But I also wonder, we've touched on it in a couple of our interviews, but that balance with council members having their family time, being involved
Yeah.
in the community, sitting on all these boards.
Yeah.
I mean, when do you have 5 minutes for yourself? When you hear about everything that they're doing and you don't necessarily see
Right.
it all, it can be quite overwhelming.
Yeah, and a lot of times people only look for or see the downside, the bad side. They don't see
Yeah.
the good stuff.
Yes.
They don't appreciate that you're reading, 30 hours a week of agendas and stuff.
Yeah.
that you have
800 to
read
1,000 pages.
for the
Wow.
for the
Yeah, it's like
regional.
it's like graduate school. It's like
Yeah.
800,000 pages a week.
And there's no Coles Notes version of
Nope.
that either, is
You
there?
need an app.
Nope.
So, speaking of people who have run in the past in Oshawa,
Ooh.
I congratulations on receiving the Rotarian Award. I heard that was as part of your legacy,
Yes,
and I'm
I was
curious.
very honored.
Absolutely. I'm curious about the log cabin in Vaughan.
Yes.
That you stumbled across. Which belonged to your grandfather? Or
Yes.
Your 3 grandfathers before?
Well, yeah, 3, I guess it's 3, William Pewterbaugh. So my dad's first cousin was a former mayor of Uxbridge,
Okay.
Carl Pewterbaugh. He's since passed, of course. And my brother had this book. He's a teacher. He was a history teacher. He's retired now. And he lent it to Carl's son to look at. Carl's son went to Vaughan to look up the old homestead. And sure enough, just at that moment in time, they were taking down it was sold to a developer. They were taking down this old house, and under the cladding was a log cabin. So the call went to my brother. My brother called me, and I said, I got to save this. And that was the hardest 2 years of my life, trying to figure out, because Harris had just been elected. They'd slashed all the budgets in heritage. And there was no money to do anything. So I eventually ended up having to pay to move the log cabin. And I think I called, I don't know, like 190 places. And the second last call I made was to Pickering Village Museum. Spoke to Dave, and the mayor called me and said, we want it. We want a schoolhouse for Durham Region. We had a building, and it's being sold to a private company for a daycare, and we want this building. And I said, well, it's a log cabin, but if you want it with a school, I'm for you. And we got it finally up and moved, which was a story in itself. And it got stuck between 2 trees, and the mayor said, Wayne Arthur said, take the tree branch down, and we got it through. So it was, but they did a great job. Their community organization raised the funds to completely restore it, and I learned a lot about heritage preservation. It takes a village.
No kidding.
Yeah.
A literal village at this point.
Yeah.
That's an interesting concept, though. Taking the log cabin, dropping it somewhere else for use, and all the little steps that go in between. And
considering it was in your family.
Yeah.
That's
No,
amazing.
it was pretty amazing.
Wow.
All the way back. I think they thought it was from about 1830.
Really?
Wow.
They actually, the archaeologists at U of T, they could see who worked on it, and they found other craftsmen because of the way they did the way they square the logs. Everyone had their own technique, so they were able to say who was working on it.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, it was neat.
We have another guest on the line. We have Linda Cook, who is the regional councillor running in Ward 2 regional council in Pickering. So,
wow, that was a close race.
Linda, welcome.
It truly was, wasn't it? Yeah. Hello.
How are you?
I need a minute. That's how I am. I'm happy. There you go. That's how I feel.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
So how was the campaign? Was it fun?
It was fun. I have to tell you, I made some amazing friends along the way. There was an unprecedented number of new first-time candidates on the ballot, and a huge number of women. So, of course, in true women fashion, a number of us sort of rafted together and helped each other. And I made some terrific friends and some great contacts in the community, and heard lots of just incredible stories of what people have experienced over the last few years. So even if I had lost, I'm richer for the experience. So
wonderful.
Fantastic. 6 months. I guess I've been campaigning since May.
There's certainly no
long road.
There's certainly no shortage of people running in Pickering, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, we have a lot going on in our city right now.
Absolutely. What are some of the issues that I guess voters talk to you about during your campaign?
It truly varies. There was a lot of concern about infrastructure and development within the city itself. A lot of concern over lack of, some of the basic services such as road repair, sidewalks leading into bus shelters, which of course affects accessibility. We also have that huge planned or proposed condominium development that is on the docket that, could end up being 75 towers across the city, which, can cause alarm for some of the residents when you look at the potential gridlock and infrastructure structure issues across the city. So those are some of the big things. A little closer to home, you have people worried about health care. Our ambulance pressures, because this is a regional position I ran for, wait times to get an ambulance really shouldn't be a factor, but it is. And so that's something that the entire region needs to work together to address.
Did people have a lot of concerns about how the pandemic was handled in Pickering?
You know, that never came up.
Really? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, truly. Isn't that interesting? I had
Amazing.
expected that to be part of the conversation, but no, just so focused on getting back to community and, you know, building Pickering in the vision that we all would like to see it continue.
Right. I have Taylor Bursey and Louise Parks with me. Louise, you probably know, was a councillor in Oshawa for several terms way back when. Taylor is a host on Roger's show and a radio personality. So we're going to fire some more questions at you.
Okay.
Well, I'll just jump in. Hi, it's Linda. It's Taylor. I heard you mention that you made some wonderful friendships along your campaign trail, and you touched on the sense of getting back to community. So will you be leveraging some of those relationships that you made for your term?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, one of the women that I was fortunate enough to learn from and run with also won this evening. Her name is Mara Nagy, and she won the local seat in Ward 2. So, you know, that there's a simpatico relationship there, that we already have very similar values and, you know, a very similar platform to work towards. So there's some synergies already going in that, you know, make me excited for our future working together. So a lot of women won tonight in Pickering. So it's sort of hard for me to wrap my head around all of that right now.
I'm sure it will settle in quick, and it will be an exciting journey for you.
That's great.
Now, viewers who have been watching this for the last couple of hours know that one of my points that I have been bringing up is reaching the new audience. I think everyone can agree that we've seen a lot of families move out of Toronto, the city, into our regions and our areas. How are you planning on reaching those new and young families?
Well, I think the first thing for Pickering, because we're like right next door to the city, is we need to be so much more than just sprawl, right? And just a bedroom community to Toronto. I don't think that's the vision that anyone wants here. So one of the key things we need to look at is bringing innovation into the city and making it a destination. and that involves services and planning and recreation for families to want to not only buy here, but stay here and grow here. So you need the right services, and that includes, you know, schools, amenities, you know, whether that's winter accessible trails and events that you can take your children to and new recreation facilities. I mean, all of that is what will continue young families to want to move into Pickering and stay in Pickering. So I think that's a big, you know, idea we need to wrap our head around, is how do you connect with those families on that level and get the word out that, you know, the city has a lot of great things to offer and get involved with.
We were just talking about that a few minutes ago, actually, about connecting with families. Louise, did you want to add?
Well, you know, just further to that, it's so hard, when everyone gets home from work from Toronto at 8 o'clock at night. You really don't have the time to get involved with the community. Now, you were in a crowded race, I see.
The Ward 2 race was very crowded.
Yeah, how did you distinguish yourself, Linda?
Wow, you're going to have to ask the people who voted for me for that. I think my platform is very, very clear. I've been around Pickering, and in particular in my ward, for a very long time. I won't tell you exactly how many years, but a really long time, and I've worked with various community organizations. So I think that, you know, I was already a known commodity, let's put it that way, within my ward. So this is sort of the next evolution. And I think I bring my authentic self. And I think anybody who's come across me, whether I'm volunteering at my local Legion 606 in Pickering or with Special Olympics, if you've met me, you pretty much know me. I am exactly how I present. So I think that was my edge, perhaps.
Great. That's sort of what we were talking about, getting involved in the community, how important that is. So terrific. Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
You're probably busy. You're probably not alone right now.
Yeah. So, well, I thank you for the time. I do appreciate it.
No, thank you very much. And thank you very much for running and for doing everything that you do. We'll follow you the next 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, whatever it's going to be. And
Okay.
congratulations.
All right.
Enjoy
Thank you
the
all
night.
so much.
Thank
Have
you.
a great night.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye. Well,
What
That's
a breath
great.
of fresh air.
it's great to hear
So
that
excited.
about Pickering. It is.
She has a radio voice.
She does. She does.
I should call her. I'm sure she's busy though.
So we have another guest in the studio who's just joined us, Mr. Dan Carter, Mayor of Oshawa.
Good
Welcome.
evening. Hi. It's great to see everybody. Louise,
Good to be here.
See you,
really
Mr.
good
Mayor.
to see you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So I'll just start with, in 2018, you came in with quite a landslide, and then the next day General Motors called you and said, hey, we've got some news for you, my friend. And if that wasn't enough, we had this thing called the pandemic. So walk us through the last 4 years. What was I won't ask what it was like, because it must have been challenging, right?
You know, in a lot of ways, it also was a great way to be able to enter the mayorship, because I think what it did is it really demanded you to be able to bring the best out of you, but it also demanded to bring out the best of everybody. And Louise, you know this from your work at City Hall, it really was an extraordinary time to be able to see everybody come together and really find solutions. One of the really unique equations about the General Motors announcement was you had the public aspect of it also, of people that were being directly affected by it, the anger and frustration that was there. But on the other side was, how do we move forward? What pathway do we create? And I think that I learned a great deal out of that. And I think that the relationship that I had with General Motors over almost a 20-year period helped me understand their business decision. It helped me reach out to Unifor and kind of understand where they were going. And then how do we keep the conversation going, and how do we keep the doors open? And I think that was key to seeing the end result, which was 3,000 jobs, $2.2 billion of an investment, and some exciting things happening at GM. The pandemic, well, that was a game changer for everybody. And I think we all kind of learned a great deal. I mean, I still remember this, walking through City Hall, and there's 6 of us, and it was just very eerie. But the world was changing dramatically, and we're essential services, so we had to find a way of delivering those services and making sure that we connected with people, and we also had to communicate with them to be able to let them know that everything was going to be all right, even though we were trying to figure out what was going to happen.
So it was a learning experience for everybody.
It was incredible.
But people
again,
look to you, right? People look to you.
Yeah, and it was, you know, the job of the mayor is 2 things really, is to be the chief consoler officer and the chief encourager officer. And through that period of time, it really tested me on all those levels. But I got to be absolutely honest. I was blessed and honored to be able to receive the opportunity to be mayor of the great city of Oshawa. Tonight, I am humbled once again by the support of the community, and I'm just blessed to have this opportunity. And Louise, like I say, you know what it's like to put your name on a ballot and go through that process and really, you know, put your family through it. And then, you know, when you are reelected, it's kind of like, I can grow my fingernails back again.
Right.
You know, kind
For a
of
very
like
short
that.
time, though.
Yeah, very short time, yeah. So.
You were up against 2 other people, so
Yeah.
So what was the election, the campaign like for you?
Well, I'll be very honest with you. I think you're going to hear this from a lot of people that ran with campaigns across the province of Ontario. It was a lot different than any campaign I've ever been involved in, and I would imagine some of my colleagues that have done this longer than they would say the same thing. I think we saw behavior and activities that were aggressive, that were not what I would say as the diplomacy that we're used to in our community. I think that there was some things that really concerned me in regards to, you know, some of the behaviors. Some of the social media posts were quite aggressive, and some.
We were talking about that
were said.
earlier. There's a lot of that.
I think we better understand that, you know, we do this because we love our community. We do this because we believe that the skills, the abilities, the talents, and the gifts we have are what our community needs at this time. We understand that this is a moment in time. This isn't a career. This is a moment in time that your leadership is necessary. And our families walk with us through that period of time. And they're subject to what goes on. But I am surprised at that kind of Americanism of politics that is coming in. And I feel that what it's going to do, and this is what really saddens me, I think it's going to chase a lot of good people out of seeking office. And I think we better have a conversation about it and see how we're going to be able to address that. That's just my opinion, and I would imagine this is not news to you.
Not at all. I think we definitely would agree with you. The very fact that so many people are acclaimed is a test to the fact that not as many people are running, and I think social media and the bashing that takes place on social media is a big proponent of that. A big source
You know,
of that.
social media does some really amazing things.
If it's
you know,
used properly.
It's used, and there's ways that it supports communities, and it raises money when it's needed for families in need. We see wonderful things that happen on it.
Right.
On the other side of it, it has brought a lot of darkness into it. And I just think that we need to have a conversation about it. And municipal politics, provincial politics, federal politics, anybody that puts their name forward for public service, you know, we come to the job and we commit ourselves to doing the very best on behalf of our community.
Right.
And we want to do the best job we possibly can because, you know, our families, we live here, we serve here. But I do think that we have to have a conversation about where we want politics to go and how all of us are going to have to hold all of us accountable in regards to what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And we saw a lot of things in this particular campaign, and I'm speaking not just for myself, but
We've heard it from others.
And it's you know, a lot of damage, not kids kicking over signs, but nasty things put on signs and spray painted and cut out and damage. It was not good.
There's two thought processes. One is obviously the pandemic has given people a lot more time to go in any direction, and a lot of people have taken a bad direction for that, and that's very evident on social media. Also, the U.S. politics from 5 years ago, is a big root which has seeded, which is obviously coming across the border, but where it's okay to do that sort of thing. That's the message that's coming.
Yeah, I think that that's played a significant role in regards to what's acceptable and what's not. But yes, the pandemic did. People were affected mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually, every aspect. So their families were affected. We're not used to isolation. We lost loved ones that we couldn't celebrate their lives because of the pandemic. There is a built-up anxiety that is in society, but we still are a better society when we don't allow these kind of things to come in. And I think we've got some great people that want to serve in our communities, and I'd hate to see those individuals not have the opportunity. We got young, bright, gifted, well-educated, committed individuals in our community that we need them to lead. But let's support them. Let's make sure the process is proper and that we support people through that process.
Yeah, very much so. Do you folks have something to add?
Well, I do. Just touching on some of your comments that you made, and as a bright, eager young person, if you will, how would you encourage young people to get involved in politics and local government despite these acclamations and shenanigans that have been going on?
I think it's a great question. I think there's a couple things. One is the responsibility lies on myself and others that have been elected to be able to have conversations with our youth, to be able to make sure that we do town halls, that we go into the colleges and universities, into the high schools and make ourselves available. I think that's one. And making sure that opportunity happens. Invite young people into the process itself and really show. What I've tried to do is I'm reaching out to a lot of different segments of our community right at this particular time and saying, you know, young people that you identify within your community, that you really can see that they have the promise of leadership. Why don't we work together and give the opportunity for them to not only come in and experience what we're doing, but why don't we have these conversations now? Because 4 years from now may be the appropriate time for them to be able to run for public office. But we also want to encourage them to be able to sit on our committees and get involved that way. It's just, we have to make sure that it can't be a one-way, well, you have to get involved and we'll wait for you. I think both of us have to come together and say, this is a welcome mat for you. I had one of the best conversations about 3 weeks ago. I went into a journalism class and they said, we're gonna do a press conference. And they had everybody in there, and they said, do you want to know the subject matter? I said, no, I don't want the subject matter. I'll walk in, we'll do a press conference. We did a press conference for 2 hours.
Wow.
But it was the interaction in regards to young people and the questions and the detail that they looked at. It gave me an opportunity to really kind of encourage them about, this is how the process can actually work. And it was just, it was wonderful. And I said to the professor when I was finished, I said, please do this more often. because what happens is we connect with young people and they see there's a place to have a voice, but more importantly is they should have access to their mayor. And I think that that played an important part. So I'm encouraging all young people, please find a way of getting involved. And if that means picking up the phone and calling me, then call me.
That's a refreshing perspective. And I think a lot of young people listening will definitely appreciate that approach, because you're absolutely right. It's a two-way street. And I think oftentimes we hear, you need to get involved, you need to get involved. And you don't necessarily know how to get involved. So thank you for
Or
doing
invited into the process.
Yes.
And I think that's another thing, is we've got to invite into the process. But you know, again, we look at the numbers in regards to how many people are engaged in regards to casting a ballot. We live in a democracy that allows us to cast a ballot. We have to find a different way of being able to communicate and connect with people to get them engaged in regards to the political process. And that cannot be just, we say to the public, well, you got to cast a ballot. No, we as elected officials have to do everything we possibly can to engage people, to get them not on the 3 months leading up to an election, but the 4 years of service that we have.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. Louise, you've been down this route quite a number of times.
Yes. So I guess, you know, we're talking a little bit about the Americanization and that sort of invasion. But I wanted to, Mayor, when you're here, is maybe share with the public our voting procedure. We use the voting machines. I forget the name of the company we use, or if there's a couple. But just the process and how that's done. It still has obviously the audit trail. The ballots are retained. If you could just walk us through that.
So it's a great question, because there's a big debate going on in the United States about, is it fair, is it right, everything else. To my understanding, the process, there's a couple things. One is this particular election, we did something different in Oshawa, which was a mail-in component. I think the next stage of that is, how do we make that available on technology? And so can you vote from your phone, from your home? And what will that do? And what are we trying to accomplish? So there are some that believe the democratic process of casting a ballot should mean that you get up, you go out, you go to your polling station and you cast a ballot. The reality being is the world's changing, and we've got to find different ways of doing it. So the city of Oshawa, in my opinion, we started with the mail aspect of it. I think we're going to have to see a progression in that in regards to the technology. Right at this particular time, you go to your polling station, you show your identification, you've got an opportunity, they give you a ballot, you fill out your ballot, it's put into almost like a small folder. The folder itself goes to another individual. Once you've made your selections, that selection goes in to the machine itself, and that paper copy is kept. So there's electronic print and there's a paper trail on it also at the same time. And this is again one of the things that are really, really important in regards to making sure that the auditing process of those ballots can actually be physically seen and physically audited, if that's the case, because there is more and more of that conversation in those that want to stir that up about saying, well, it's being manipulated. No, we've got the paper ballots that'll be able to go hand in hand with the technology aspect.
If you have technology, and I know there are many areas now where you can vote on the internet. And people are skeptical. People are always skeptical, first of all, of something different and something new, and of just simple technology, because you do hear that such and such was hacked and this happened and that sort of thing. But there are safeguards against it too. So, and it is the way of the future, and it will get more people voting.
I think having the paper ballot as a backup, I think is very, very important. I think it also gives people a sense of security. And Louise, again, as the world is changing so much, so how do we make sure that through this process of modernization and using technology, how is it convenient, how is it engaging, and how is it audible, so that we can actually make sure that people, if they have questions, we've got the processes in place. The good news about a lot of what we've experienced south of the border is we're learning a great deal of what their arguments are and what people are saying. And it also prepares us also to make sure whatever investments we do make in that new technology, that it can actually be supported in regards to what steps are necessary.
And we're also learning how not to do things from them.
Oh boy.
Mayor Carter, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
It's
I wish you
pleasure.
all the very best of the evening, and
All
it's
the best
great.
to you.
And Louise, I have to say, it's great to see you once
Yeah,
again.
great to see
So,
you, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
All the best for the next 4
Yeah.
years, 8 years, 12, whatever it's going to be.
I look forward to the next 4 years, and I thank the people of Oshawa for the opportunity to serve once again. So,
Congratulations.
May God be with you.
Good.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you very, very much. All right.
Wow.
And that was Oshawa.
That was Oshawa.
How are the other races shaping up?
I know. I know that we've got a couple of acclamations in Scugog. Mayor Wilma Watton is acclaimed as mayor, and of course, Mayor Dave Barton in Uxbridge is also acclaimed. We do not have any other numbers from Scugog, nor from Kawartha that I've seen, and Pickering, we don't, we have some numbers from Pickering. So,
All I have to say is what a refreshing approach from Mayor Dan Carter there,
know.
especially when we're talking about activating our youth and getting them involved. Just
Yeah.
lovely to hear.
it's, and the fact that he's not new to this arena either.
Yes.
You know, you expect someone who's brand new to be that enthusiastic and such, but no, it was very interesting. Very
2
interesting.
hours in a journalism class, no easy feat, let me tell you.
No, and really with 2 universities plus the medical school connection and the college, there's a lot of youth to get involved. So
Absolutely.
We do have
a lot of skills.
We do have another guest on the phone, the newly re-elected chair of Durham Region, Mr. John Henry.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm great, actually. I'm excited about the next 4 years and the future of the region.
Congratulations, sir. Well deserved.
Well, thank you.
So, what was the election like? The campaign?
Oh, well, the campaign was, Durham region is such a large region, 2,500 square kilometers, and 8 large municipalities. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of walking. I'm happy. I can say that I'm wearing clothes I haven't worn since the last campaign. But you get a chance to get out and meet people from the lake here all the way up to Lake Simcoe.
Great. I have Taylor Bursey with me as well as Louise Parks.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, John.
Good evening. Congratulations. As
Thank
you
you. Thank
mentioned
you.
before, lots of walking, lots of area to cover. Did you disseminate your platform and your goals in any other medium other than door knocking?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Social media, radio, print media. I'm really proud of the team and the campaign that we were able to run. We used, all mediums that were available to us, and that is how people will campaign in the future. It's not like social media has become such a big part of that, and being able to utilize those tools and get your message out, you can just reach more and more people.
Definitely. And talk to us a little bit about what your goals are for this upcoming term.
Well, the goals are to continue the great growth that we're having in Durham right now, continue to attract companies to move into Durham. We've been very, very successful. When you look at within the automotive industry, there's General Motors, and of course Lear just opened their new building in Whitby. Kubota moving into Pickering, Toyota moving into Clarington. Bad Boys is moving all of their operations into Pickering, their warehousing and their front offices. The new bakery that will be built in North Pickering. The small businesses are opening up through the entire region. And then tomorrow there's a great announcement related to small modular nuclear reactors at Darlington tomorrow morning with Minister Smith.
Wow.
Wow.
Lots of exciting stuff coming up. Louise, do you have a question?
It is a great time to be in Durham. It's a great time if you're a young person. There's help wanted signs up everywhere. And, Durham is a place where people are moving to. We know our population is going to double by 2051. And the next 4 years is going to be getting ready for that, putting the pieces in place to make sure that we're ready for the growth that we expect to come to Durham, along with the jobs that will be here as well.
Well, congratulations, John. How many pairs of shoes did you wear out in this campaign?
I went through 3 pairs of shoes. It is, that's the great part about getting out and knocking on doors. But, when you knock on doors in our rural communities, they're often, it's 1 acre lots with 300-foot driveways.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a lot of walking in the north, and not so bad in the south.
That's where
But
those
it's a
electric bikes
lot
come
of
in
stairs.
handy. Those electric bikes when you're in the rural area. Chair Henry, John, one question with regards to, well, I guess fortunately if you're GM, unfortunately if you're taxpayers, GM won its tax appeal. How is the region sort of going to buttress the impact on taxpayers in Oshawa and
Well,
the region?
the great news is that we're able now to attract more and more businesses to Durham, and we've had a really good successful 4 years with what's gone on throughout the region. We've got businesses that have relocated or moved to our waterfront and into our northern communities. And we've had a number of big successes. And of course, that OPG is moving their corporate offices out here very shortly. And then the small modular nuclear reactor program is going to attract businesses that are in the nuclear areas of business to our region, because this is the only place in North America where small modular nuclear reactors are going to be developed. And it's the partnerships that we've created with businesses not only in Canada but outside of Canada that are looking at nuclear and looking to Durham. Durham was the energy capital of Ontario. We're now the energy capital of Canada. And with the completion of the small modular nuclear project, we'll be the energy capital of the world. And that is a great news story for young people that are in university, for our tradespeople. This is going to be a world change. Imagine building small modular nuclear plants that can be moved to places of the world where they're using fossil fuels to generate electricity. This is a great project, and Canada is the leader of that, and it's going to happen right here in Clarington at OPG.
Do you have a new job figure on that, John?
I don't have the total figures. We know what the estimate is. It's thousands of jobs and hundreds of millions of dollars to the economy. But once that won't happen till the project gets started. But tomorrow, the Minister Smith is out here. There's a big announcement tomorrow morning related to small modular nuclear reactors and funding. And we're excited about that because that signals the project is moving ahead.
That's great. Great news, John.
John, congratulations. I know you're probably not alone there. You've probably got have a few people standing around you. Thank you very much for spending time with us, and congratulations on what I would consider as quite a landslide victory. So,
well, thank you very much, and thank you for the call, and we'll look forward to making Durham grow together.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited about the future of our region.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, and have a safe evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
That's not really a big surprise, I think, to many people, the fact that John Henry was reelected. I noticed that Granville Anderson was reelected as well, for a different ward than he ran before, but...
Yes.
Yeah. We're starting to see how those vote splits benefit the incumbents.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely. I wanted to touch on, now I don't have a lot of experience with this, Louise, so I will defer to you and perhaps to you as well, Taylor, on school trustees. What exactly does a school trustee do?
Well, they represent certainly the parents very much on policy issues. It's very important with regards to school openings and closures, to have that representation. There was some discussion years ago in the province of just getting away with school board trustees, and I'm really glad the province decided to retain them, because it's a grassroots connection to your children's education, and it's very, very important, both at the Catholics board as well as as public schools.
Right. Okay.
And there's big changes. I think there's 15 candidates, is there, in Oshawa, and there's 3 seats.
Yeah.
Wow, and there's no incumbents, so it's like wide open. It'll be interesting to see who's successful.
Also, I wanted to, and we're going to hold there, I wanted to talk about accessibility as an issue, but we do have someone else on the line waiting to speak with us from Whitby. It is Steve Yamada. Sorry, missed that. Mr. Yamada, how are you?
Excellent. I'm glad the last 5.5 months is over, and now we can get back to work and start working for the folks of our community again. You know, Whitby's a great place to live. I moved here from Etobicoke, and my wife and I love it here. We're raising our family here, and we're ready to get on with the next 4 years.
Excellent. I'm sure the last few months have been a little grueling for you.
It has been, you know, long days, late nights, but it produces the result that you want.
Right now, you were incumbent. You've been regional councillor for the last 4 years. Was that your entry into politics?
No, I started off in 2014,
okay.
Winning a position in East Whitby, Ward 4. And again, I'm always grateful to the folks in East Whitby who gave me my start in politics and working for our community. And you know, we've been able to do a lot of great things over the last 8 years, and we're going to continue working.
Excellent. What did the people on the street say to you? What sort of message were you getting from the voters when you were doing your campaign?
Well, I think what I heard loud and clear is that people are hurting. You know, the cost of everything is going up. And I'll give you an example. My wife sends me to Walmart every Saturday with the kids, with my list, and you see the cost of milk going up a couple bucks. I used to be able to get my 2 bricks of great value cheese for $9, and now it's $10. And then the cost of gas when it was over $2 a liter. You know, people are hurting.
Absolutely.
Businesses were forced to shut down. People were forced to go on CERB. They don't want to see people trying to solve, or politicians rather, trying to solve problems with raising taxes over the next 4 years. They want to see real solutions, and they want to see us stay within, tighten the belt maybe a little bit, and work within our means.
Right. I have with me Taylor Bursey and Louise Parks.
Well, you know, Steve, it's Taylor Bursey. Congratulations. You mentioned at the beginning of the call that you originally came from Etobicoke, and we have been talking a lot about people moving from the Toronto area into Durham region, and I'm just wondering what brought you to Whitby and to what inspired you to become involved in the community?
I've always loved community and being a part of a place that you live and wanting to make it better, more family friendly, affordable, safer. And so, you know, I think what drives a lot of people out of the city, again, is cost of living. Our house we were able to buy for about $500,000. We wouldn't have been able to get something like that. And we looked around different areas and different municipalities, and you know, we were driving along Robert Addersley right by the Folkestone Park, and we got out and walked around, and you know, we saw a lot of young families with their kids, and it reminded me of growing up in Toronto and going to the community park and playing, meeting my friends, and getting to know folks, and just becoming part of the community. And I loved what I saw. And I said, this is a great place. I want to, let's move here. And let's raise our family here, because this is what I want for my kids. And, you know, today my daughter's in ballet, and she did soccer, and they love the school that they're at, and they love the community that they live in. And I love the community that I get to serve each and every day with a good group of people whose prime objective is to make Whitby better.
Absolutely. And I believe there are a lot of young families moving to North Durham and Durham region. You know, how are you going to reach them and hear their concerns and hear what they're excited about? Do you have any tactics that you're going to deploy?
Well, I think one of the tactics that politicians use is still going to the doors. I know COVID really changed the way we do business. I think reaching out through social media is a great platform to hear from younger folks. I do think going to the door and knocking on those doors and talking to people in the community, or when I take my kids to the park and we're talking to folks on the playground and hearing about their concerns and hearing about their issues. You know, as long as you're getting out and talking to people, they're going to tell you what they think, and they're going to tell you what they feel and how they think that we can make this community better. And I always say, on election day, I need your vote, but after election day, I need your help. And it's only through working together with the community and the folks who live here that we can make it the best place to live, work, and raise a family.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Louise.
Well, congratulations, Councillor Yamada. Question for you: when you're knocking on those doors, were people optimistic about the future in Whitby? Was there pessimism? Where were they sitting, I guess, just after COVID, on the cusp of COVID?
Yeah, you know, I think it was a bit of both. I think there are people who were angry. There were people who were frustrated. But again, there's a lot of people, everyone in this town loves the community they live in. And they want to see it succeed, and we want to see it succeed. And, you know, you spoke about COVID, and there were challenges during this pandemic, and one of which was the outbreaks that we saw at various nursing homes across this province, and Sunnycrest being one where 35 people died. And you know, when I saw Cynthia Mulligan's report on City TV, I picked up the phone and I talked to her a bit about it. And you know, I found out all of the horrible things that were happening, and what, you know, I started doing, and it was a little morbid, was going through obituaries and cold calling family members that lost loved ones at Sunnycrest, and getting these family members together and getting them in front of the Ontario Long-Term Care Commission to tell their story. And we did see the home shut down, and hopefully the folks who lived at Sunnycrest are now in better nursing homes, getting better care for the last years of their lives.
Right. Well, listen, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And to the folks here in our community, we've got a great place that we call home. And if there's anything that we can do, reach out to us on the phone, through email. The next 4 years are going to be a challenge, but we're going to be working hard to make sure that we are successful and that we respond to what we've heard over the last 5.5 months, whether it's taxes, whether it's development, whether it's community safety. We will be addressing these issues. We'll be addressing them under a new mayor, but most importantly, we'll be addressing them as a team.
Wonderful. We look forward to working with you and being with you over the next 4 years, 8 years, whatever the time span will be. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Enjoy the evening. You've got a lot of work ahead of you.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we did get the word there that Elizabeth Roy was elected as mayor of Whitby. So
wonderful news.
That is done.
Good.
It's coming up to 10:30. We've been here for 2.5 hours. And we're still waiting on, I guess we're waiting from the north, right? We don't have anything from Scugog yet. We don't have anything from Kawartha Lakes. And we don't have anything from Brockus yet either, correct? I'm told that Scugog is coming in very shortly.
Extend their time
They
for voting.
extended it to 9:30, but okay. So we have Janet Guido, who's been acclaimed as councillor for Ward 2. Robert Rock in Scugog, acclaimed councillor Ward 3. We have Harold Wright, who's acclaimed councillor Ward 4 in Scugog. And we have Terry Coyne, who has been elected as councillor for Ward 5. Wilma Watton, of course, is the mayor, and Ian McDougall is acclaimed regional councillor for the North, and David Leroy for Ward 1 in Scugog. So that is Scugog done. Congratulations to all the folks up there. Yes. So that just leaves, I guess that leaves Brock and Kawartha Lakes.
And while we're on the topic of Scugog, there were a lot of acclamations up there.
They were.
So
unbelievable.
You know, I wonder what these next 4 years are going to bring, and are we going to take a page out of Dan Carter's book and inspire some people to get involved in our municipal government and really get involved in their community, or what's going to happen with that? So it'll be an exciting couple of years. There's a lot to be done in Scugog. There's a lot of fun things happening there as well. So I think it'll be a good time.
Right, absolutely. We also have the numbers now for Kawartha Lakes coming in, and you can see them
on the screen.
On the screen. With, I don't have the names of all the people in front of me, their first names, but we certainly have the. I'm not going to go through this. The list is endless on this Kawartha Lakes group.
It's a big area.
It is a significant list there. I think a lot of people ran in the Kawarthas.
Absolutely. I'm not sure if we have a mayor-elect for Kawartha Lakes or not. We do. And their name is? Coming soon.
There it is. Elmsley.
For you folks out there, we have a ton of people working behind the scenes here, compiling this information, and I'm sure you can appreciate it comes in bits and pieces, and they have to assemble it all, get it into magic systems, and then poof, it's on the screen for all to see. So we really appreciate all the work that they're doing behind the scenes. The winner of for Kawartha Lakes, the mayor is Faye McGee, who has quite a lead.
No, it is.
No, it's Elmsley.
Elmsley.
That's what I said. Sorry. Doug Elmsley.
Rewind.
Rewind.
Sorry about that. Doug Elmsley is the mayor. Okay.
All right, and I think we're going to take a quick recap of Pickering.
We are. So Pickering, we've got the current mayor of Pickering is Dave Ryan. Where are we with the Pickering results?
We are on the screen here just going through Ward 3. We're coming up to Ward, Trustee.
Okay, so McCafferty and Cunningham for trustees.
And Linton.
All right. It's great having these results come in.
Oh, Kevin Ash.
Kevin Ash.
Wow, look at that split.
There.
That's very close too, isn't it?
That is close. We've seen a couple of races be fairly close. I believe earlier we had one that was a difference of 33 votes.
Yeah.
I know that they were going to do a recount to see.
They are. They probably won a few areas, but it's very, very close.
Oh.
It still comes back to the fact that I don't have a percentage of people voting, but I certainly hope that people did get out and vote. It is
that'll be very interesting to see if we improved.
Yeah, it's a privilege to vote. We live in a country where democracy rules, and it's very, very sad when people don't take advantage of that, especially when you look around the world in countries such as the Ukraine right now, places like Russia and Afghanistan, where you do not even come close to having an opportunity to express your viewpoint. The things that are happening in Iran are just beyond words. So we do have an opportunity here, and we never want to get to that state. So it is very important for people to exercise their right to go out and vote.
And there are multiple options, which we've discussed on this show: mail-in voting, in-person voting, electronic voting, telephone voting, and we might have an app coming soon. So
maybe we should do this app together.
Well,
I'll leave that to you
we're
guys.
going to have to find a developer, but I can market it.
I'll push the button on it. But it is very true, and it's not just the people voting who have the opportunity to make a difference. It's the people running too. And if you are someone who has a very strong viewpoint, then please take it up and make your voice known and run. Make a difference.
And on that point, I think we should dabble in the social media. If you have a strong viewpoint, there's a way to articulate that viewpoint. It doesn't have to be aggressive or nasty or mean. Speak your mind, speak your truth, but remember that the person on the other end of that phone is a human as well. So let's exercise some decency and improve the climate for communication between the public and our politicians.
Yeah, debate the issues, not the people.
Exactly.
That's a good line. Very, very good line.
That's why we make a good team for our app.
Thanks. So we talked earlier about accessibility being an issue throughout the region, and I just want to get your opinion on your take on the lack of, and in a lot of small communities, or even bigger ones, I guess, where a lot of businesses are grandfathered in that they don't really need to build the ramps and so forth, so that everyone can access the building, make the doors wider and that. Is that changing, do you think?
I think most businesses want to accommodate every possible customer. There's so much competition now, especially for small business. But I think this is where the provincial government and federal government can really help. There should be grants and funds to do this. And we need some innovative, inexpensive solutions for old building stock in the region. You know, downtown Oshawa, downtown Whitby, you know, parts of Ajax and Pickering. And then obviously Bowmanville and other communities.
Right.
Up in Uxbridge, etc. So, we have to be. Everything should be accessible, but we've got to realize that businesses only have so many dollars, and it's going to be tough. That we're going into a slight recession, and everyone has to pay the loan back if they took it. All the small businesses, so it's going to be a tough year.
Absolutely.
For extra expenditures.
And I definitely agree with that viewpoint, and I definitely feel the burden that would be, well, the quote burden that would be placed on the local business owner. But I think there's also something to be said for people that need that accessibility service. And I think there are a lot of times where you don't realize the impact that it has until you're impacted by it. And not everyone is impacted by the need for accessible access to things, but the people that are truly do need it. So there needs to be some middle ground between the burden on the local business owner, if you will, and the person having the ability to access the facility. I don't think accessibility is something that we can debate. I think it's something that has to happen.
Absolutely.
And businesses have to be innovative. They they have to do 360-degree views of their store and their merchandise. That's available now to do, and also in-home shopping.
Right.
Go to them if they can't get in and navigate the store. It's a smaller store with not appropriate aisleways. Go to your customer.
Yep. The world is changing. We have to change with it. Well, folks, it's just past 10:30. We are going to leave the numbers up on the screen. We're going to say goodnight. And congratulations to all the people who ran, all the people who won, and all the people who put their names forward and did something about issues and so forth going forward. Thank you very, very much, Taylor, Louise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure being here tonight. And thanks very much to all the people who worked behind the scenes here to make this evening possible. And most of all, thanks very much to you, the viewers. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.